Happy Holy Day, Moors, and welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, an awakening experience for all ages. Tonight, we are pleased to present our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey, as he discusses sons, snakes, and sedition. Let's receive him.
Yeah. Salam, everyone. Salam, etc. We're just going to have a loose conversation, and we're going to mention some things with the principle and the intent on your part to do a little research and recognize that in Asiatic African mythology, we have different both figures and anthropomorphic presentments that represent forces and powers, as well as representing culture and traditions, and also the nature of things or the nature of beings, etc. The choice of conversation tonight on snakes, sons, and sedition is for the collective thought for people in general to increase or supplement the will and the cognates of rejecting dogmatic positions that have been structured off of ancient African and Asiatic mythology, as well as the misrepresentations of ancient African and Asiatic mythology, customs and traditions. And so these things were brought up also so that the people can take another look at the political forums, the motives of persons who have been claiming to be government, the motives of persons who have been holding positions of authority, positions of the priesthood in relationship to the people at all levels, in all climes, in all nation states, in all tribes, etc., and to direct our thoughts more to the original or foundation meanings of certain myths and certain beings, etc., which are anthropomorphic. And so we're going to go from there. And you're going to we're going to make these notifications, and we're depending on you to do a little bit more research because each one of these things with the sons, with the snakes, and with sedition are all collectively related to the operational politics and social engineering that has been going on in the modern world, and in particularly used to the negative against the people at large, and at large used negatively, particularly against the Canaanite Moabites of North America, from which in these recent centuries, the Roman powers have been used for world conquest, as well as conquering the Aboriginal people here, etc. And so I picked those subject matters. These are no things that you have not heard before, and it's nothing that you're not generally not familiar with, but I want to draw some perspective to give you some patterns for thought in these matters, etc. So we're going to talk about sons. These are some of the things that we want to mention to you, and we want you to be thinking about. Keep in mind that for social engineering controls and for political economic controls, in the contemporary times, the people have been groomed under the promotional ideas that there's a separation of church and state. They've been groomed with the promotional ideas that snakes are negative, they've been promoted or taught with the promotional ideas that what they have called pagan or sun worship is contrary to truth in nature, etc., and contrary to the foundations of original religion, and even then, not explaining the anthropomorphic presentment and the mythologies that were put in place for teaching children, etc., and for maintaining reference points for memory, etc., culturally, etc., and to maintain the general integrity of customs, etc. And then sedition, because ultimately the sedition against the people or humanity at large, because you got to look at it from this perspective. Generally, when people look at the word sedition, their general thought is the violating or the misprision activities that are attributed to those who subvert, attack, overthrow, interfere with the sovereign or the sovereign powers in the nation states. Dr. Naila, we read to the people sedition.
Sure, I'm going to actually put up.
Yes, put that up for them.
Banner.
Yes.
Sedition is a serious felony punishable by fines and up to 20 years in prison, and it refers to the act of inciting revolt or violence against a lawful authority with the goal of destroying or overthrowing it.
All right. So now that's the qualification. Lawful authority would be distinguished from unlawful authority. So when you're looking at authority in government and you're looking at sovereignty, the sovereignty is divinely already within the people themselves from the divine order. It is not built or given in a government structure. It is adopted or lent to persons in honor who take governmental positions coming divinely from the people, or what you would call a divine trust, for them operating in a kingship or rulership honorably and harmonic to divine law, to nature's law, nature's God, and not abridging the divine and unalienable rights of the people, meaning that not confusing artificial civil law constructs or in legacy operations with the divine rules of the Hermetic laws, divine, that are rooted in nature, from which proper organized government is derived. And the sovereign powers that are used, and it's also referenced as the power of life and death, in the hands of any ruler, is divinely of the right of the people that is lent to them conditionally and limitedly for governing in the structured order of society for the security and protections of the rights of the people, secured, not given, but secured, etc., with honor. And when such position is breached or violated, such persons with that supreme power by rule of law would be called traitors. And the rule, because the principle, the power that's vested in the sovereignty is so great and devastating, or used positively, is so prosperous for the people, that the wages of violations against the sovereign is death, and not just necessarily so many years that may be legislated for a person to be imprisoned, etc. That is a conditional punishment, but the fundamental principle of that is death, because that would be treason. However, to put in perspective, what we want to mention is issues of the suns. So when you're looking at the suns in any particular solar system, the sun is referenced as the center of light, or the center reflector of light, and often given in accordance with the nature of the planetary spheres and life forms as the life giver, etc., or the maintainer of life. Now, the anthropomorphic presentment of the sun would be like Ios, Jesus, like that, Jupiter, Saturn, etc., according to the time period and according to the millennia. And so you would look at that in relationship to life on Midgard, Earth, as an example, which is the planet that we're making reference from right now. And the word Earth only means place of inhabitants. So Midgard is not the only Earth. However, Midgard is the conversation that we're having now. And so when you're talking about the sun, you're talking about symbolically life, etc. So the anthropomorphic for the sun in the mythical or the anthropomorphic presentment in what we would call religious study form would be Son of God, Ios, Zeus, Jesus, etc., Jesus, etc. All of these are anthropomorphic and not necessarily the physicality that the people are taught. The physicality is referenced as anthropomorphic. The divine, or what you call the nature God principle, is actually the energies, forces, and powers that operate in the universe, or particularly in this universe. And that principle is universal in its character. And so we say that Jesus is the light, or Ios is the light, or Ra is the light. And you will find over periods of centuries and decades the different names that are given to the light. However, you must understand all of those different names in the different linguistic forms still come back to one root. And this is where you get the concept of the one God principle, meaning that all of the energies collectively equal one. And so even when people are dealing with the Ibri name or word Elohim, it actually means mother, father. When you're dealing with the principle of the Trinity, you're dealing with mother, father, son. When you're dealing with different stories of the Stargate, you're talking about the womb and the uterus of woman. When you're talking about the Ankh system, etc., you're again talking about the geometric form that is designed for governing, but essentially is the geometry of the womb. Dealing with the uterus, you see the top loop, and then you see the fallopian tubes, and you see the birth canal, and that is the sun. That's the cross of the sun, or what you call holy sun, holy cross, etc. So that's your real first cross. All right, and this is why in ancient Amexem, in ancient Africa, in ancient America, etc., you will see the symbol of the Ankh as the symbol of government and rulership, etc. Now, in relationship to snakes, all over the world, you will look at different metaphors and different ways and anthropomorphic presentments of the snake, or what they would call the serpent. And essentially, when you're looking at a snake, etc., some snakes have keen eyesight, but most snakes have not the greatest of eyesight, as you may see. But they rely on the harmonic vibrations of the earth, and they lay upon the earth. Their belly is on the earth. They crawl on the earth, and so the harmonic vibrations of the earth and the sounds that emanate from the earth. Snakes are among all the life forms are closest to that vibrational sound and vibrational harmonics. And so the snake has often been studied by Asiatic Africans and used symbolically as a source of study for the harmonics of Earth, our relationship to Earth, our relationship to the harmonics of the Earth, and our relationship to nature. And it also is symbolized in caduceus, which you will see as a symbol of medicine. And you'll see the two snakes coiling up the staff, etc. Now that has multiple meanings. One is the activation of Kundalini, or some people say Kundalini, in the Bible and in holy books, it would be represented as ascending unto heaven. That would be equal philosophically and in the nature of the operations of the physical body, of the activation of the energies coming from the groin area of the spine to the medulla and up to the pineal gland, which is symbolized also in philosophy books as ascending unto heaven, and also with the ritual that you see, anointing my head with oil, whereas they rub the oil on the forehead, activate symbolically to activate the pineal gland. All these things actually mean the same thing. And so the symbolism of the snake has always played a part in Asiatic African culture and in religion itself from the most ancient of times. And they'll call it snake worship, but is not so much worship as it is study, and also being symbolically part of Asiatic African culture. And so you will see it in carvings, you will see it in vixillum that you call flags, you will see it in stonework, woodwork, etc., in all kinds of art forms, etc. And this is what it means. So essentially, for the average person to look at the snake being used in different rituals of worship, what it actually simply means is the activation of the Kundalini. And again, ascending unto heaven, again, anointing my head with oil. Those terms all mean the same thing. And it actually symbolizes spiritual development or ascension. And that spirituality, of course, you already know that spirit actually means breath, and spirituality means breathing techniques, etc. And it means only that. Now, the Gnostic philosophies, in harmony with what they would call Hermetic law, is essentially your religions. That would be coming from your Gnosticism, going into that would be Vudan, that would be Sufi, that would be Saba. All of them are related to that foundation philosophies, etc. And so even when you see different church groups around the world, even here at North America, where some of it has, where you see it, and of course, not understanding, people would reject it because they've been trained and taught that the snake is the devil or the negative, etc. But that was done more by the priesthood to keep the people from knowing the origin of the use of the snake in religious rituals, etc., so they would not be aware of its origin or how it plays into Asiatic African culture. Because one of the operative concepts and political actions of the Constantine order, of the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed order in conquest of Asia and Africa, was to give a reflection that would put a negative light on Asiatic African religion and culture, from which they have derived all your contemporary religions and cultures. And so it's a misrepresentation, even with the misrepresentation as the snake deceiving Eve, and so therefore Eve is the beginning of evil, etc., stuff like that. Those are metaphors and not as they have been presented. So I wanted to mention that. And so the misrepresentations of both religion and thus the sovereign divine governing of humanity on the planet has its root in the priesthood as a collective format and a body of griots, or what you would call seers and master astrologers, in organization. And this is universal, not just in one part of the world, where for selfishness and their corruption, they have taken the anthropomorphic presentments of religion, misrepresented it for the sole purpose of them living off the people and actually becoming what you would call veiled and undetected vampires, veiled and undetected exploiters, veiled and undetected con artists, etc. While for themselves and for their personal selves, they would maintain secret orders and the truth of the meanings of the Bible, the Quran, the other holy books, the Bhagavad Gita, etc. The Vedas, known as the Vedas, the four Vedas, which has been known by philosophers to be the four Vedas being some of the favorite books of Yashir, the one they call Jesus, etc. From all these books, in order for the masses not to be aware of the fundamental sameness or connectivity of all your so-called religions, etc., having the origin in both snake study, or what they would call snake worship, and in the study of the sun, of light, given light, which is universal also, and then them using the study of the snake as an opposing force to the sun worship. And this is where they have presented the idea that the snake is the devil and that the sun is the son of God, etc., with misrepresentation, rather than telling the people the truth, that they are actually balancers of heaven and earth, and also our relationship to the both of them. And in doing so, they've actually created these multiple platforms in the name of religion, which is known as dogmata, and actually created schisms on the planet and having people fighting each other and hating each other rather than bringing love, harmony, and not just with ourselves, with the families or the kinship of humanity, but also with nations, etc. I had some soup. Yeah, but then before I came up. And to this very day, you'll find people in the name of their religions hating each other, fighting each other. And they got different concepts of gods and devils with limited specificity, while claiming a knowledge at the same time, having limited knowledge of the origin of all these things. And so our conversation that we're just talking about, and we're just having a conversation, is to reduce the hatred, the divisions, the schismata, and for most of all, the ignorance that people have displayed in the name of religion and thus in the name of politics. Because keep this in mind, your political orders on the planet, Midgard, in all your political orders, your scholarship orders of the erudition of universities, etc., and in what they would call the pulpit, with the so-called spiritual teachers, etc., is an absolute origin of collective priesthood. They just took on different titles for governing and ruling the people. This is why you will find in almost all the customs and traditions of organized government around the world, you will see the so-called, particularly more or less preserved in Asiatic and African cultures, where the high priest and the griots, etc., also were political ministers. And so you would see them, what they would say, wearing two crowns. They wear one crown when it comes to administering the people, guiding them to the mathematics of heaven, and that would be cosmology, and then to the mathematics of and the geometry of the reflections of the heavens on the earth, and that would be your civil governments. And in fact, while people who are holding positions of office in governmental structure pretend that there's a separation of what is called the Great Circle or the astrological circle of governing over mother and son, known as Masonry, and the study of the laws of nature and the phenomena of divine law, from which civil law properly is derived, etc., which is called ens legis, etc., and the distinction between what they call heaven and earth, or what they would say is the abstract and the concrete, or they would say the spiritual and the physical. All of these are relative. Or what they would say hex alpha, as above, so below, etc. And the effects of organized government, either to the positive or negative, and they'll say reap what you sow, that's cause and effect, etc. We have the unfortunate reality that the priesthood collectively has really been really severely corrupted. And some of these things that we're talking about in general is known by scholars, known by politicians, known by the priesthood. However, many of them don't speak on these things because the corruption has been so ingrained and so practiced on at Midgard that if they told the people the truth, most of these institutions would collapse overnight. And of course, that would take their hands out of the pockets of the people and would also close down the straws that these vampires have in people's necks in the name of God, religion, and politics. And all of it is connected. Dr. Naila, would you like to interject on some of those things?
Just wanted to add, when you think about the crown and you think about corona,
which is the crown, both the sun and crown. It means both of those things.
Right. And what we've been going through, and the fact that the very institution that they created, i.e. The church that we know it, the dogmatic church, is seemingly now they have little to no use for it, because what they're doing is in effect destroying that institution simply by the fact that people have been, put in positions of not being able to congregate. Their congregations congregate. And so it seems as though it's like, okay, we don't have any more use for this particular institution, or we don't have as much use for it, or we realize that the people are waking up anyway, and
it's not controlling them like it used to.
Right. And so why are we going to continue to put any energy into it? They're letting
it in the structured institution as it has been.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. For those of you who are listening here at the House of Reawakening Minds tonight, sharing this time with us, do a little research on what's happening around the world. In China, Tianyi, with many of the Manchurian families, etc., they're literally all across China tearing churches down. And some of them they're burning. Now, you got to look at this two ways. People who really don't understand will look at it as an absolute negative, with the idea in their mind that this is an attack on the Most High or God, because people have been trained that the church is the house of God, etc. Or that's their training. However, if you look deeper in it, it was the church that was used as a front to go into Asia and Africa as a tool of war for infiltrating. And then they not only were stealing the land and the resources of the people, that's also the foundation of their entering into China undetected on the principle of helping the people, when actually they were instituting their what is known as the Opium Wars to destroy Chinese society. And the other fact of it is, because the reality has come to the people on the planet of what we're talking about now actually is the dark side of dogmata, that the church has been used as a front, as a war and a conquering tool, and not as some spiritual or philosophical development which has been presented to the average person. And this is why it creates such a problem, because people immediately associate the organized church with Jesus, Ios, or the Son of God, or the Most High, when in fact the order of Constantine has actually been used for absolutely the contrary. And because most people and many people are uncomfortable when you get into the subject matter, because we've all in some manner or some ways been associated with these different organizations, we have this automatic mental defense mechanism that jumps up instead of paying attention to the product. Meaning that if you want to look and honestly and be aligned with truth and look at the conditions of humanity on the planet, the treatment and the mistreatments of humanity on the planet, the track record for the organized church is almost, you might say, opposite of everything that they promoted for their propagation, meaning that they've always said one thing and done another. Not only that, the results when they come through has always been destruction, war, deception, pedophilia, murder, sacrifice, child sacrifice, bloodletting, and disorder and disharmony. But the entry is always like, Allah loves you, Jesus loves you, you owe him, pay us because we're the middleman. And this has been, and they've been doing this for quite some while. And people, for the most part, because they have limited knowledge, and it always presented from a mysterious perspective, they were reluctant to question because they could only go but so far because they were never taught the truth. This is again why we're talking about snakes and sons and then sedition, because the ultimate activity of the priesthood has been the sedition that you see in both the church, organized religion, and in the politics. And what people need to know is that this concept that people have that there's a separation of church and state, that's for those who really don't know organized government on the planet, because the state belongs to the church. That's the other thing that they don't tell you. So they tell you that separation of church and state when actually they're priests running the state for the church. And this is back to the Vatican. Now, understand that the word Vatican actually means snake worship. And then when you look into ancient Africa and Nubia and Sudan, and then going up to Hikupta, that you call Egypt today, from which you get the name Ptah and also the name Peter in the church. Naga, which is the high priest in Africa, etc., or priesthood, also means snake gods. You understand? So all your symbolisms in all your fundamental religions is snake study or snake worship with relationship to the vibrational harmonics on the earth, and the fact that the snake always being on the earth also uses what is known as the vibration and the senses, the high sense, and they would stick their tongue out and actually taste the air, and they would taste molecules and measure both distance, sound, location, etc., to even find their food. And then when you're talking about Medusa, yes, as a matter of fact, you share it with us. Let me hold it for.
That's okay.
All right.
I actually have brought it up on the screen. I'm able to bring it up.
Thank you.
Yeah, talk about Medusa. You can go ahead and what I'm going to do is pull up a. I took a picture, this is showing.
Yes.
This is showing. This particular picture was done by a brother. I'm going to use his government name, Vincent Lyles. He drew this.
That would be wardship name.
Yeah. Vincent Lyles, and I have actually, as you can see, I have the whole.
Yes.
Original, which is that's about a 48 by.
That's all about 36.
36 by 24.
Yes.
I have the original, and he what it says here is the truth of Medusa. Let me see. Snake's true origin is ancient Libya, later titled Medusa by the Greeks, also known as Neith, that's Neith, by the ancient Kemites or Egyptians. The triple moon goddess was represented by the crescent, full, and dark moon, the goddess of wisdom, beauty, renewal, and power.
Yes.
She carried serpents or representation as a representation of the Kundalini energy.
Yes.
In her later stages as the crone.
Yes.
She masked herself in menstrual blood to protect her black magic. She wore locks, misconceived as snakes, and was so strikingly beautiful that all races and sexes who were caught in her beauty were stunned, causing a quote-unquote stoned effect, which is what we have this look at Medusa. And also the mythology where they murder her, where they kill her off. Right, which cut her head off. And yes. But this particular, what you're seeing up on the screen, like I said, This was drawn by, I guess you would call this, it's like a charcoal
Yes.
drawing by Vincent Lyles, who a young man who used to come to the House of Reawakening Minds pretty regular, and I appreciate him giving me the original. As you can see, I have.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, that is beautiful.
This is the original, but I had to. I wanted to share that with you all so that you can see that Medusa, the concept or the mythology of Medusa,
is a negative, when it actually that represents the Canaanite Moabite woman, or the matriarchy of Earth, the Stargate and the Wise One. And also, they talk about the three rulers, etc., because it's you back to the Trinity principle. Now, so that would be a mythological way to talk about the powers of the Asiatic woman. You know what I mean? That give birth to all. And logically, she has the greatest beauty, not unlike the poem that you read. So the issue with those who use the dark magic against her is to teach her to hate herself, or her offspring to hate themselves, which is really a mythological story of telling you the politics that's going on the planet even right now, where you see the Asiatic people, African people, particularly those who have been under Constantine rule, have this self-esteem problem, or a lack of understanding pedigree, traditions, and cultures, because we've lost it, particularly in the North Gate. And so this is again why the subject matter too, because even as the restoration of the lost estate in process, which is politically in process on the planet, can be recognized by them, because spiritually and politically they have to be in a right state of mind to receive their estate, so that the hybrid dark priests don't regain or take over. Because what you're doing right now, you're going through a transitional stage, whereas there is that the Constantine order is falling. However, the Moabites, when you read in like in the Bible, Ruth the Moabitess, when she pray for the nation to be restored, etc. Pardon me. This is why they refer to people who are contrary to moral and ethical principles as ruthless. That comes from Ruth, or Ruta. That's her name, actually, Ruta. So Ruth is the great-great-grandmother of Ios, or Jesus. So Ruth was a Moabitess, and thus her son of the great son is Ios, or Jesus, Zeus, who is her son. He's Moabite. And this is why, like in the Bible, it says he has hair like lamb's wool, skin like burnished brass, because he's Moabite.
I don't even cut you with him, but what came to mind when you were breaking that down is the fact that they're always embroiled in ritual. And so just before we came into this great reset, this cosmic reset, what happened a week or so before that? You had Tiny Lister, who mysteriously died or transitioned, and his ring name when he was a fighter was Zeus.
Yeah.
So it was almost like they had to crucify
they're ritual sacrifices that they make. This is all, and this is what must be also understood. And another reason why we're having this conversation is to put some light on things that people have taken as negative, and some things that are good. So, because in order to start fixing the problems that we have here on Midgard, honesty, things need to be looked at for what they actually are, and not necessarily what we've been taught that they are. And it's sort of like if you're willing and you're intending to fix things at Midgard, or make life better for humanity and help uplift fallen humanity, even though it's uncomfortable for a lot of us, you must start telling the truth. Because if the people don't know the truth, they will still be in the wrong path in their mind. Because keep in mind, the body will travel where the mind is. And as long as the mythologies are not explained honestly, and that the anthropomorphic presentments, or the personification of forces and powers and cosmic movements, are not told to the people honestly, they will remain in what you call a childlike state, or thus being in a wardship position. And the priesthood is depending on this. This is why they so many persons in power are really upset when you begin to teach of the Canaanite Moabite pedigree. and the fall of the Moorish nation, etc., and of course of the ancient Moabite nation in Central America, etc., which is actually ancient Central Africa. And this is all, the same psychology that the German Dutch hybrid Europeans use with creating this mythical or non-reality and political false geography and political platform of Hikupta, or Egypt, being separate from Africa, is the same and identical to them separating North, Central, South America from Africa, when indeed it is all Africa. So when people look at the tradition of the Constantinian order and Roman Curia members and scholars always separating Egypt from Africa, understand they're not just talking about Egypt or Hikupta at the north part of east of Mexum. They're talking about northwest of Mexum, or northwest Africa, which is the northern hemisphere, also known in prayer or in Salat as the Maghreb. So you're talking North, Central, South America. So, and particularly at the North Gate is the Maghreb. And so the Maghreb means Morocco, the most extreme west, Northwest Africa. And when you study different secret societies and different terms that they use, all of these things are coded in them anyway. And this is, again, why you will see in your secret societies different orders of mother and son study, what they call Masonry. You go in their lodges and particularly when they would have properly constructed buildings, architecture. Now, some of your more modern lodges are less elaborate. And so, but most of the ones where they really put the finance in, when you come into the halls, you will immediately see the zodiac. That's Masonry. Keep in mind, that is Masonry. Ma and son study, or what you would call Isis and Horus. Mary and Jesus, they all mean the same thing. So when people see the Constantinian order members using an image or carved image of what they call Mary and Jesus, her son, in her lap, like a crescent moon in the seed, or you see the star or the sun in the hands of mother, etc. That would be Isis, Diana. All that means the same thing. And Ios, or her son, Jesus, mother and son, cosmology, the heavens in relationship to the earth, and the study of that, and sound and colors, color spectrum, primary colors, etc. And your relationship to all that which is divine, that is really Masonry. That's also why Masonry is also given a negative connotation to the people, so they don't really study it, and they think it's some club that was made up in the 1700s for hybrid Europeans, when it's actually the study of ancient Hikupta, Egypt, Sudan, and Nubia, and the ancient Sabian Moors that they cover up with the word Jew. And this is where you see in the book of John 8:44, where Ios or Jesus say, those who claim that they're Jews are not Jews, because the real Jews, or Saba, is the Sabian Moors, etc., Canaanites. And you're going back to Nubia and Sudan, coming up to Hikupta, that you call Egypt, and all your pharaohs, or because pharaoh actually means the high house. And those who sit in the high house, etc. And this is the foundation of both your matriarchies.
Speaking of pharaohs, something just came up as a memory for me on my Facebook, and I was trying to repost it, but I was having problems today that there were 8 female pharaohs, but there were many female pharaohs, and when the pharaohs were in rulership, there was order, unlike that of under patriarchal system, where it became more warlike.
Now you understand warlocks?
Warlocks. Yes.
Because remember, all of your rulers are essentially MAs. So when you see the acronym MA,
Master Astrologer,
that's what it means. Yeah. Not just Moorish American. Mm-hmm. It means Master Astrologer. Mm-hmm. All of them are. Whether they're working the dark side or the side of the light. Keep this in mind. And then even when they give the negative to Babylon, keep in mind, we're Babylonian. What they're talking about is those who use the dark magic. Because the truth is what it is. And just like the Bible says, the sun shines on the good as well as the evil, means that the powers are neutral. Your knowledge of the powers and your usage or misuses of the power is the issue of the moral standards that we present to humanity in organized true religion to maintain moral and ethical government. So that's how religion is actually supposed to be used. However, and this is why for those of you who've done any serious study, while the Constantinian order, members of the Roman Curia, have deliberately removed from a lot of the old texts from which like the Septuaginta and books from which the modern Bible is derived, while they removed the 7 books of Moses that also deals with magic and alchemy, that they removed the book of Mary, the book of the infants, etc., the double books of the infant, and other books that the priesthood have, but they don't have to the public because they don't want you to know what they have been using in secret. And the people have not suspected that the priesthood themselves has been the demon to humanity. And the same way that they've been teaching the wooden god or concepts enslaving humanity or subjugating humanity is the same way it's reflected in government order, de facto distinguished from de jure. So when you're looking at de facto, you're looking at false god worship, false god government. You're looking at de jure, you're looking at lawful or rightful God or rightful most high or rightful law of government or the light as opposed to the darkness as presented anthropomorphically in the books. So that's how you must look at things. And this is, again, why we're having this conversation. Because majorly, it is giving those who don't know, giving you or sharing with you, talking with you to reduce the mysticism and where people are afraid to actually look at the books with a true critical mind and a true critical eye, and also to be liberated. So humanity cannot, it's not that they can't be, but it makes it more difficult for humanity to be liberated, preparing them for this clean slate or cleaner slate opportunity for the evolution and the ascension of humanity, with the least of us having to be removed from the physical in our learning process, because the dark priesthood, because they're losing power, are using all kinds of methods to kill off a lot of humanity because of what they have done in this past millennia, particularly under the age of Pisces. Actually, we know it's connotative, i.e., enslaved humanity. And they don't want the world and the people to really see that the darkness that's blamed on the mythical devil actually comes from the lower self of the priesthood itself, collectively. And so don't get caught in this old idea that, because he says he's a Jew, or because he says he's a Christian, or because he says he's a Muslim, or because he says he's Confucius, or Jain, etc., or any of your Brahmic priests, etc. They're guilty across the board because they have not told those truths. So we're discussing those truths because the foundation of what we're talking about, all of them have their root in it, in both sun worship or sun study and snake worship. This is even why you see the rulers, the ancient pharaohs, or what you talk, even if you're talking the higher self and the lower self, or the rise of the Kundalini, or anointing their head with oil, you will see the asp even on their crowns, etc. It's the snake. All right. So, and it's not a negative, it's rulership. And also Medusa is a ruler. So that's the matriarchy, and this is why they would teach that the snake is negative, because they don't want you to start studying, because you'll find the origin of all your world's religions. You'll find the connectivity of all your world's religions. It starts removing the mysticism from all the world's religions, and it starts liberating the minds of humanity. And then when the priesthood lose their power, the political platform that they set up for themselves loses its power, and the corporate entities of the dead that they've created for sucking the blood and the energy and the estates of humanity will begin to collapse and dissolve. That's referred to as the apostasy, etc., will take place and is taking place right now, and therefore we're having this conversation.
The apostasy is the great falling away.
Yes.
When I was a pastor, and when we taught that the falling away would be those who would be lured away from the faith and would fall away from the true teachings. But when in fact they always knew that
this time would come.
That this time would come, and the scales would fall from the eyes of the people, and the people would see the truth. And so the falling away would not be so much of people being pulled away by anything negative, but seeing things for as they really were, seeing who that man was behind the curtain.
Now, and let's look at this. Now, from a etymological position. You notice that the familiarity or the close relationship of fiat and faith and the scales on the eyes, that's called blind faith.
Yes.
So the projection of the priesthood to protect their corruption would be, this is the house of God, and the people are falling away from the house of God. So therefore you don't want to do that, right? That's the psychology, right? When actually they're falling away from the seats of the devil.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, anthropomorphically and in the metaphor for also the liberation of humanity, for those of you who have, your Septuaginta or your Bibles, you go in the book of Thessalonians 1 and 2, and you'll make reference, and the wording will be according to the structured transliteration. And it'll say, remember when I was here yet with you, I told you these things, that they would place themselves on the throne of God, claiming to be God, etc. This is what you has been going on for centuries against humanity through the priesthood, and all of it is being exposed now. And logically, as it's falling apart, they're both insecure in both what you call the karmic realm, as well, and particularly in the physical realm, because most of the focused energy and structural work was done for them to capture the three-dimensional world or to be rulers of this world, etc. This is again why even when you see so-called Egyptologists, they'll tell you about Egypt and not tell you about Hikupta, right? They'll say Egypt, they won't say Hikupta. They'll say Greek and won't tell you Greek is just Hikupta Island, is a Hikupta Island. They won't tell you that Ptah, Peter, that they use in the Bible, is derived from Ptah. And they won't tell you that the real ones that sit on the high house, the seat of the high house, was the mother. And this is why they'll tell you, misrepresent and say to you, the Trinity is Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, when they know that the Trinity is Mother, Father, Son. And also, this is why you have symbolically in the geometric form of the pyramid, Mother, Father, Son. Mother is the foundation, and Father and Son rise to the pinnacle of light. And then you have the eye of Horus, which means the gathering or the conclusion of all the senses that would be sight, touch, taste, hearing, smell, etc., insight and intuition, all together with the seven formulated. And so you have the insight or the activation of the single eye, and the activation of the pineal gland. And this is where you actually look in to see out, and you dig down to go up, or you go deep to ascend, and you go in to see out. And this is where the reality of the Buddhanic and the Saba or Gnostic philosophies, or what they call the Sufi philosophies, etc., which are all related, have their origin in the relationship of knowing or having a knowledge, the recorded knowledge on the function of the physical body in relationship to the environment, the nature of the transits of the sun and the planetary structures and their alignments, conjunctions, sextiles, quincunx, etc., squares, etc., and the energies that are reflected on Midgard in relationship to the energy that's emitted from these planets that has much to do with the makeup of the body, including the way the womb is used in the structure of these temples of the soul of man, referred to as Solomon's temple. Again, our conversation is to remove the mystery and get down to reality, and to remove a lot of the spookisms and the fears that have been inculcated into the people via the priesthood and dogmatic instructions, so that humanity is more able to start taking stake in their own life, in their own affairs, in their own matters, and remove the divine sovereign powers that they've given to corrupted priesthood, which would include these politicians, because they're all high priests, etc., and retain or restore the estate. And that those who claim to be Jews who are not Jews will be removed from the seat of Israel. And that's the truth, because that is you, that is your birthright, and it is on you to reclaim it. But you must be pure in heart and honorable. The other deal of it is you got to have some knowledge of the real philosophies and mythologies and traditions of Asia and Africa in order to know that. And so to remove the negative that the hybrids have put on the word pagan or people, earth people, and the snake, etc., misrepresented, so that you can look at these symbolisms in Asiatic and African culture and recognize it's not evil. It had different meanings from what they've been telling you. So start using your brain, start respecting yourself, start desiring good for others as you would for yourself, and nature herself will begin to help healing us all. And so we're having a conversation about suns, about snakes, and about sedition.
From a standpoint of, when we think of sedition,
Yeah.
meaning, that an overthrow, truly, this is an act of sedition when you look at how our people have been lied to, kept from the truth, misrepresented, how misclassified, reconstructed history has then, put into the minds of not only our people, but other people, and inferiority, superiority, difference, which
the
is
caste systems.
Right.
Yes.
All of these things are truly, and then our people, the rightful government.
But the rightful heirs is the people.
Yeah, the rightful heirs are not governing.
And they're not capable because they have been guided. Keep in mind, the dark priesthood have put the people to sleep and also have maintained the institutions of erudition and learning. And essentially, along to harmonize with the blind faith, they've created a fiat system. And with that fiat system, they have actually been using tithing, and it's called Roman tax, because tithe means Roman tax. And that power to tax the people has been used actually to destroy the people and to create artificial enemies and actually drain their substance. And this is really what has been happening in the economic system now, too. And keep in mind, the reset is not what people think it is. Now, when you're talking about the reset, we're not just talking about the alignments of the planets in the heavens, etc. We're actually talking about the priesthood trying to reestablish their power over humanity and over Midgard, as their older system has run its course and is collapsing.
Right.
And keep in mind, it is not so much as many people are try to encourage people to look for, to restore things as they were. They weren't right as they were.
Right.
However, that system has fallen apart, and they're trying to reset the mystery system of fiat, whether it's abstract or some other form of the currency or the monetary system. When it's not a monetary system, it's a control system. In other words, the old guard of the dark priesthood are trying to interject themselves into the Aquarian light because they're being thrown out. Do you understand? So that's part of the reset. So even though it's done in harmony with the cosmological reset, because we keep in mind, one of the keys to the power of the priesthood is that they do everything according to gematria, or according to the geometry or the astronomy of the planetary movements.
Right, so they can project. So when you can project out the charts, you know what's going. They can project out 1,000 years.
That's how prophecy is done.
That's right. They already know what is set up to happen. You know, they can't maybe predict everything down to, but they know what energy is happening at what given time, what influences they will be able to yield at those particular times. So that gives them an upper hand. It's all, and they also employ the remote viewing techniques and the various, all of these different things that they're able to do. The looking glass,
they call it the looking. That's one of the terms they get it.
Looking glass, right? So they're able to scribe,
or the prisms,
and the scrying. They're doing all of these things to peer into the future and to look at everything is in a place called probability.
Yes, mathematical. You're dealing with math,
right? It's probability. So it could be zillions and zillions of probable outcomes, but yet there's an overarching influence in a given cosmological period that they can know where, it's, this strength is here or it's weak there. And so they plan. Their plans are based on cosmology.
It always is.
And that's why I say
they're all MAs.
But that's why I say in my poem that regardless of your 1,000-year plan, soon you won't have a leg on which to stand.
Now, what is it, again, why they're trying to murder off the people? I'll tell you, one of the motives, among others, is that with all the calculations that they've made with the different paths, what's upsetting for them, it still concludes back that they lose.
Yeah.
And so out of both bitterness and anger, because they put all this time in to gain the whole world,
to lose their
soul type thing, it's the idea that they could overcome divine projection. That's what's going on.
I said this the other day on my ride. I did a ride with Dr. G yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I was led to talk about the importance during this time of us projecting. And I'm glad there's over, 1,200 people listening. So I want them to hear this. The importance of us projecting love, gratitude, forgiveness, sincerity, projecting what it is we want. What we want, we have to project what we want.
Because you are. See, people need, even when they're looking at the study of nature, they must recognize that humanity in your manifest form, they're told you that you're born in sin, when instead of telling you that you are a born seed of all that is divine. And true religion is to give you the memory, or because you have a cycle, a placement. So we're in a cycle placement, and you are learning. So this is both experience. Some of us are here to fix, right? Some of us here are to learn. All of us are here to learn. Some are here to help, and those are at different degrees. However, a knowledge of how things work here gives you more connection to purpose of why the Stargate is used, or why your mother brought you here. And of course, then you bring the balance of both what you would call modifying the carnal desires, meaning you rule over that, and then recognizing your divine purpose and understand that it's a balance. It's not one to be discarded for the other. It's supposed to be balanced.
Right.
All right. So
we've been pushed
to the carnal.
Yeah, we've been pushed to the carnal side. We've been pushed into our lower self.
Out of balance.
We've been pushed to be in a state of chaos and anger and retribution and all of these things that do nothing but bring back on us a karmic debt. And so if I get the people to think in terms of, you can think of this in terms of when you're angry with somebody. And even, I've been angry. I've had frustrations, and all it does basically is hurts.
It turns in on you.
Hurts you. So what we want, again, what I was trying to, the point I was trying to make is exactly what we have to emanate, because we have to know that we are the ones that are the creators, if you will, of the reality. Even though we're in sort of, like you said, we're in this loop, we're in this time placement, but we still have control that we don't know we have for the most part.
This is why the priesthood keeps telling you, give your mind up to Jesus.
To Jesus.
Yeah. However, understand that Jesus is they're using Jesus as a front.
Right.
But they're not really lovers. If you would, you know how they say, you know what they say, Lord, 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 but their hearts are far removed.
Oh, yeah.
They use him to get into people's pockets and into people's drawers too. Well, let's, like you said, it's grown up talk. It's grown up talk.
Right.
You know, and that's and we must become fearless warriors of life and start looking at things for what they are and understanding we chose to be here, but we're here to learn and be willing to learn, so that the cycle placement that we're in right now is not wasted. You know, because you already know you're coming back till you learn your lessons.
And see, that's another thing. The fact that the priesthood conspired to project a so-called biblical truth that I call it the one and done theory.
Yeah, and the fear of death and all that stuff.
You have one life, you live it and you die. So you might, because they knew that if people realize that they've been here and will be here time and time and time.
Same like the trees. You want to study yourself, study the trees.
You can't control people who have no fear. Just like you.
Exactly.
You've transitioned before, so you don't. And anybody who's had that experience, who've had near death or whether it was real death or near, have no fear of it anymore.
No.
Because you know what it is. But everybody who has yet to do it, it's not almost. It's, for most people, I think, that are enlightened, even if there's a apprehension, it's not so much of the dying that bothers us. It's the how did we? Then here's the point. How did we select to die? Did I choose as my exit? But was it the close my eyes at
night? Will it be peaceful?
Right?
Will it be hard?
Yeah, was I going to sleep one night? Wake up and I'm back where I started, or it's like that horrible accident I saw on the way to pick you up. No, but that's the part, because it's from. To be absent, if you will. They told the truth. To be absent from the body is to be present, they said, with the Lord. But to be absent from this physical body means your spirit goes back to source. You go back to where, until you decide that either you're going to come back and
what's really, and this is what a part of the learning that people need to understand. This whole idea that they just transfer from the physical realm to what they would refer to as the etheric spiritual realm, etc., is not always really like that. Because some of the energies sometimes stick around. Some people don't know that they're dead in the physical. Right. This is where you get hauntings, what people call hauntings, where they can't really communicate in the physical, so they try to give signs or something like that.
Attention.
And people,
I'm here. Hey, I'm here.
And people who really don't understand it in the physical, they get scared, and it's not always evil. You got to understand. And then some people can see.
Sometimes the energy is negative.
And that's usually and that usually occurs in some instances where you have people in the physical that are seeking darkness in order to steal from other people or to injure other people, and or open up to transits, and then that gives them a gateway. So some come that way.
They open themselves up to be a conduit for the negative energy.
Because guess what? We're creators and makers of our own. And it's back to, and this is again where you see people who have a greater understanding of the workings of nature, why some things that they do that others may not comprehend at the moment, or when they're doing sometimes positive or negatives, and people don't understand when they're going through certain rituals. That's why if you pay attention to whenever people are doing certain rituals in Asia, Africa, or elsewhere on the planet, 90% of the time, they're doing something that has a relationship to the earth or elements of the earth. They'll use them in their rituals.
Fire, air, water,
or bones of
bones,
animals,
yeah,
residuals of life form, etc. And of course, from the outside, people who don't understand it, some people look at it as primal or primitive or something like that, when it's not necessarily all that. It's a comprehension of the elements around you. So the deal is get out of the spookiness and get out of the mystery and start getting some understanding of things that you're looking at.
Because the thing that we're talking about as a people group
because it's part of your history and culture.
Yeah, in order for us to do what we, everybody says, well, why can't we be unified? First of all, we got to get unified in spirit.
Without that, the physical can't follow.
Absolutely.
This is another reason why the fundamental elemental constitution of man and the astrological constitution of man being part of religious culture has always been a part of human civilization. Because then you can harmonically pull these things together without confusion. Right. But again, one of the motives of the priesthood to actually misrepresent all this and make it seem spooky or evil is their desire to rule over the people rather than to harmonize or guide the people in wisdom and in honor. They saw a position, opportunity to make themselves gods over the people. Right. This is again why they will teach the God, monotheistic God without clear explanation.
And right there in the book, to me, the biggest telltale of how that is absolutely asinine to believe is that you have a scripture that says, thou shalt have, and God is allegedly saying, thou shalt have no other gods before or besides
so me. What does it mean from that structured statement? It means the God that people claiming to be a part of is telling you that there are other gods.
Other gods.
You don't need to say that. The God is telling you that.
God is saying. No.
All right. So now what must we do? That's like me saying, I had a lecture the other night with Dr. G. And they'll say, well, that's interesting. Which Dr. G? The woman. Well, which woman? Same like law and gods and rulers and presidents and governors and priests. All law is specific. All gods are specific. This is why you see people, when they're challenged, they'll start getting in these arguments. Well, which one are you talking about? You talking about Jehovah, Jah, Allah, Parabrahms?
Yeah, and then you get others
Brahma,
say Enlil, Enki. Yeah. They'll talk about what is this? What's the other one? With the M, but the different names. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So there's so many, and then they'll tell you little things in the movies that we will look at and go, oh yeah, did you see Jupiter ascending? And did you see mm-hmm. All of the people, all of the ones that came together, and you had the mm-hmm. destruction of the earth with all the so-called superheroes.
Yeah.
But the real
symbolic of the different powers and forces.
Right.
But yet they're all gods in their own right. However, different ones have limited powers. But together, they make the one God.
Right.
It's
just the same as together we do. Mm-hmm. Together we are the force, if you will.
This is what they don't want us to do. And this is also why the priesthood has created.
That's right. Thank you, Marduk.
Is why the priesthood has created secularism, and don't teach the fundamental truths, and also teach that the snake is a negative rather than the activation of Kundalini or the ascending unto heaven. And of course, the ascending unto heaven is actually ascending, or the energy coming up, activating the pineal gland. All right, which is the cone. This is why you see in church, mosque, synagogue buildings, you'll see that pine cone.
Pine cone, yeah.
Or in some, they'll have a pineapple. And both of them mean the same thing. It means the pineal gland. Now that's symbolic. The anointing my head with oil, even the ritual of rubbing the oil on the forehead.
On the forehead, yes.
That's because the nerve thalamus coming from the dark side of the brain, terminating comes from the brain, terminates right over the nose right here. And this is why you see like a lot of the customs, a lot of customs in Africa and in Asia. You'll see them put this dot here.
Right.
That symbolizes that. And so when you're dealing with the ancient Naga who come from Africa up into northern Asia, which is now Sinda, or the Naga, or known as the Druids, now known as India. And this is why a lot of people who do research will say that Judaism comes from India. No, it comes from Africa. But it's not Judaism, it's actually Saba or Sabian. But Jew is made up to cover up Saba or the Sabbath culture and history, which is collectively all of Nubia, Sudan, Eritrea, Mesopotamia, Egypt, Morocco, all of that, the Yucatan, etc. All of that is Saba. So in the mind, because the hybrids have politically, not factually, politically in the mentality of people separated Egypt from Africa, the concept of the people here in what they will call Egypt of the East. This is why when they're talking about North America, when you start doing research, you'll see that even in the 1800s, they refer to North America, and particularly in lower Tennessee, Memphis. That's why you got Memphis, Tennessee, and Kentucky as Egypt of the West. It's never been a secret. And even the areas of the
Great Lakes, or
the Great Lakes. That's where we meditate. Mm-hmm. We did a lot of meditation there, and even the Grand Canyon area of Egypt, the Egyptian pit,
which is where they found caves that were full of.
That right. We again they separated because they're separating Egypt from Africa. Okay. It's mental. It's political. It's not real. And so you see the Africans here have been trained to hate their African blood or the African pedigree. And so logically there's this, they have gone along with the psychology of the Maghreb not being a part of Africa. You get the whole point? So therefore we're not, you'll see some of the tribes here saying we're not Africans. Yes, you daggone are. But again, that's political psychology. With all research, you'll even find all over the planet. As an example, when most people are talking about the juntas, etc., right? The juntas or the pyramids, right? Mm-hmm. They immediately go on the east side in their mind in the northern areas of Hikupta or Egypt, and that's where their mental goes. However, there's more pyramids on this side than anywhere in the world. However, based on the instructions, you would never know that.
That's true.
Including that the largest pyramid in the world was in Mexico City.
Step pyramid, was it?
No, the pyramid they tore down, and literally, it was so big, they literally built cities with it.
I heard about that.
You know what I mean? But again, that's to create what? To support the separation from Egypt from Africa.
The other story that they tell in the Bible, one of the stories, is the one about the Tower of Babel or Babel. And they have this picture in the minds of people that people were building like this rickety structure
up into the clouds.
When they were really building pyramids.
Yes.
And they were really building, I believe, places where craft could land and take off to.
They're both energy centers.
Energy center, but they were trying to allegedly get to where God was. But the pictures that these caricatures of these people falling off of this tall unsafe structure that they were building straight up.
Yeah.
And that's the thing they put in people's mind.
Yeah. So now let's look at this. Yeah. Let's look at this. Now let's get this very clear. Okay. First of all, the word or the term God is contemporary.
True.
If you want to go beyond that, you go Quran. Or Persic Quran, etc. And then you go to ancient in Sudan, in among the Naga, etc. And then you also have these other terms like swastika, like in the Maghreb, swastika, that's your four gates.
Mm-hmm.
Four
Which
gates.
they turned in a different direction.
Generation, yes. Life, generation, and regeneration.
Okay, and then they reversed it to give it a.
No, they didn't.
Did they do something with the lines, or are they still the same?
No, this is what they. This is what they do. They misrepresent it as a negative, the same way they do with the snakes.
As a Nazi symbol of.
Yes, and it's really yours. As a matter of fact, it's called swastika. Is actually translated as the good being.
Yeah.
And from the good being is what you get the supreme law or the supreme being. So when people have used the phrase in its transliterated form as the supreme being, which they feel safe with and that they use every day, they're saying swastika.
And they're saying that's where you get the white supremacist.
Oh, because they're claiming to be Aryan priests, which are Naga. And it's not, and this is again when people begin to study African and Asiatic culture, they think it's a pedigree, some kind of bloodline pedigree, right? No, it's a priesthood, and so and that's not unlike the hybrids Albion claim to be Jews and are not Jews. That's not to condemn them; it's just to put things in perspective. And again, when that knowledge is revealed, it is never to be used negatively.
Right.
It is for comprehension and understanding.
It'll give you a perspective as to what you are up against, what you're dealing with, what's against you, rather, and what you have to do again. Keep going
for
back
restoration
to it.
purposes,
right? But you still have to temper everything you do.
Yes.
If you want to turn it around for the good, you're going to have to radiate the good. You're going to have to give the love, and you're going to have to give the forgiveness and the be grateful. All of the things that we are so pushed into anger away from.
Yeah.
We're being pushed away from that. We're being pushed to frustration, fear, how will I survival, being threatened, instead of our natural state of creativity, of life givers.
And again, right in harmony with what you're saying, this is why the pagan principle is given a negative, because pagan means the people of the earth or close to the earth or people that deal with the earth. Yet you give it a negative. So now what happens if our people are without a Job? They don't know how to grow food.
But we used to know.
Oh, yeah, but let's look at this. In general, what happens when they take away the fiat de facto?
Right.
And they've taken the money, gold, silver, and copper, which is the sun, the moon, and Venus.
Okay.
Those are the alchemical metals. Therefore, in harmony with cosmology, those are used for our trade or commerce when you're not dealing what you would call direct giving or trade, or what we often speak of in the modern world as bartering. And then they put psychologically that between you and the resources of your own estate or the earth, so that the psychology is there, is that without the fiat, you can't eat. You can't eat.
You can't live. You can't.
Yeah.
And then another thing they've done is that and I know we've all, depending, especially if you're growing up to be on here, then you've lived long enough to become accustomed to certain things and certain accoutrements.
And that's training.
Things. But some things have been deliberately forced upon us that now, so when you pull the rug from under people, when you take away the thing that people have now come to,
they seek to go back. It's sort of like, even, like we talked about, people need to look at these dynamics, political dynamics, in multiple ways, and not to totally be in fear. How like people are saying, well, when this pandemic is over, we're going to go back to our Jobs and everything else, right? And you got to look at it in more than one way. people are being forced to be introspective, whether they want to be or not. So in order for the priesthood to further enslave the people, they also have to release them from the plantation and trick them into begging to come back.
But isn't that what happened before?
Yeah, let's look at this.
But isn't that
Open the gate, and the people are begging to come back. So they put out a census to get them to sign up for a bond again.
Mm-hmm.
You get the whole point?
Yeah.
Because the world stopped buying their treasury bonds. That's the basis of their economy. What is that? Human trafficking. What is the bond system? The treasury system, made up in 1861, 1862 on the back of Aboriginal Moors here. They call us Naga, or they call us Indians, etc., and blacks and coloreds, etc., to remove us from the authoritative power of their obligations to constitution treaties. You see, it's because the treaties come from the Moors, the world's oldest treaties, and that's still operative. See, so now here's the descendants agreeing to be black or Negro or something else. They're off the political platform. There is no political estate protections for them.
Right.
So that gives the hybrids the political opportunity to convert their estates into the states. That's what the corporate states actually are. They're political platforms in relationship to jurisdictional powers exercised over the sovereign estates of the Moors and the Bonnevilles.
And let's talk about the fact that the true, I guess you would call it the capital, is still Philadelphia, and that DC
Capitolium,
the district
set up for Rome.
Right. So the District of Columbia, which is not
Columbia, Roman goddess.
Right. It's not even a state or a state. It is an occupation.
It is a political jurisdiction.
And it's occupying.
Yes.
Territory that does not
belong
belong to it. So it is a foreign entity.
All right. Now, hold where you are. There's a deliberate construction of so-called George Washington's monument. And they take a piece of Maryland and a piece of Virginia, and they actually build Alexandria right on the borderline of the jurisdiction of Virginia and the jurisdiction of Maryland. That's where you get Virgin Mary. So even when you're looking at the Bible, or what they call the King James Version, you've got to look at, these are still metaphors. These are political metaphors. You know, and people, and this is the interesting thing, people in the priesthood know these things, and they're given those different metaphors, or what you call metaphoric stories, allegories, signs, symbols, and allegorical stories. Mm-hmm. And those allegorical stories and metaphors are given to you in a mythological type form, or in metaphorical stories, etc., but they actually mean other things. And so the priesthood, for the most part, aren't dumb to the real politics, which is also why they take death oaths, and why they have your secret societies from which they teach their own, or what you call chosen people, to take positions of power and rulership. That's why you see of your big church circles and your big religious circles, if you have a woman, they will be matrons of the church, Eastern Stars and Daughters of Isis, etc., like that. With the sons, they'll have Knights Templar, Malta, Masons, etc., Knights of Columbus, etc., according to the caste that they have set up. But essentially all of it is masonry, i.e. astrological study, the zodiac, which is earth culture. And then, of course, they teach they call the ancient Egyptian mystery schools. And they teach the different philosophies of the Gnostics in all these secret societies. And their favorite crown, or corona sol, or the crown of the sun, which is the fez, you know, which is the father of the eternal zodiac. Mm-hmm. Fez, yeah. And of course, Maghreb, Morocco, you know, so even people not even knowing the symbolism and the geometry even of the fez. That's why when you look at the fez, it has, your 4 sets of circles of 3 in 4 corners in the circle, and then it has the finial, just like the belly button. Then they have the umbilical cord. Then they have the ball of mud called earth. Then they have the tassels, which are the degrees, and that goes around the universe of the crown of the sun, etc. And of course, as the matriarchy, raised their sons, that's why the priesthood, or the kings, the kings were always chosen by the matriarchy.
Okay.
And given the fez or the crown. Now, in the ancient rituals, most of the people are used to seeing the red fez or the burgundy fez.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them are less familiar with the green fez or even the blue. The white.
I've seen the green and the white.
Yeah. All right. Now, so all of those degrees are actually a hierarchy. And so when you study the culture, you're going to find that those principles are ancient. And of course, a lot of that is not taught to the masses because they don't want the masses to be reattached to the culture. Largely because if you know the truth about the culture and the history and the pedigree, you'll be liberated. Or in, layman's terms, they will say, know ye the truth and the truth will make you free.
Yeah.
It's just simply that. And so again, back to even liberating humanity or helping humanity to be liberated from the dark priesthood, we've got to tell the truth about the sons, about the snakes, and about the sedition that actually comes from the priesthood. So when the average person, when they look at the issue of sedition, they're always thinking political, with the idea that the political platform is separate from the church and they're one and the same.
Obviously. Yeah. And that's the problem. So I don't know how, I think at some point when you're in ministry,
mm-hmm.
you recognize and you realize, particularly if you're in leadership, you have to come to the conclusion that what you're teaching and preaching is error. It's an error. It has error.
And it's not flawed. All. Let's put it this way. Yes, but I want to qualify this because we want to bring people into the light without necessarily them feeling that they're being attacked.
Right.
Because it's not so much in error, because the greatest error of all is the teaching of the symbolisms and the signs, etc., and the absence, the omissions, lies by omissions, and essentially the fact that they don't teach the people that most of the stories, as the cosmological stories and the energy forces and powers in nature, are giving what you call personality. And this is where you get the many of the dynasties, though some of the dynasties, are real. But where you get the stories of David, Jesus, Musa, etc., Muhammad, these are anthropomorphic. And where the dogma systems are taught, all of these in the minds of the children are real men and women, when actually, for the most part, they're anthropomorphic.
Right. Well, the scripture tells them that, children get taught a certain way, and then when they become mature, you put away the childish things. But the truth of the matter is, it continues. So
let's talk about this. So now you have anthropomorphic, right? So anthropomorphic is not unlike, things that most people can relate to. You know how a few years ago, when Sesame Street was more popular, and people would give their children or their grandchildren these dolls or these little Elmo. That's anthropomorphic. Yeah. Santa Claus, anthropomorphic for the Big Dipper. The reindeer, the 7 sisters is the reindeer.
Really?
Yeah. Sirius, the bright star, is Rudolph's red nose. So that's anthropomorphic. So when you're a child, you're taught about Santa Claus. And this is again where a lot of people who study or in the mind of liberating humanity, keep thinking that these holidays, days of the sun, are hybrid Europeans and that we should reject them. They are holidays. The fact that the hybrids have taken over most of our institutions and corrupted many of them does not mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater. Because much of the anthropomorphic instructions were made by ancient Africans in our metaphorical stories for our children. And then when they become older, we take them out of their metaphors and out of their mythology and then teach them the elements, or the four gates Yahweh. The four gates, that would be your elements, fire, air, water, earth. That's actually what Yahweh is, or the ineffable. And it's also called tetragrammaton.
Yes.
And also called swastika.
That I didn't know until you told me.
And once people understand this altogether, or the nimbus, the crown of the sun, or you see the symbolism of holy men and holy women, they will have the holiest ones, or the ones with those who have ascended, or activated the pineal gland. You would put a nimbus around their head symbolically, and that would be called a nimbus. And then it would have the four openings. That's your four gates. And of course, with the 3 into the 4 is the circle 7. So when you understand the culture, you understand all these different metaphorical ways of these forces and powers being expressed or geometrically given in a symbolic form. You can read them because you know what it means. But when the priesthood, or even like in the book of Revelation, when it talks about the revolution or the evolution of the revealing of the knowledge, that these messages or the truth will be delivered to the 7 circles, which are in Asia. They'll say the 7 churches, which are, but church is Germanic, coming from Central Africa, actually meaning circle. So as you already know, most people only know that church comes from the Germanic church, which actually means the great circle. And this is, again, when you, as we talked before, when you deal with the geometry and the symbolism of Asiatic African culture, most over the years, where you often say, when people are trying to really help tell the people about the real history and the real structure of religion, we tell them people have been to many buildings called the church, but very few people have ever gone to church. Because as soon as you ask them about Ezekiel's wheels out of its metaphorical form, they can't tell you the Milky Way, or the star belts, or Sirius, or Orion, because they don't know that that's what that means. And also the divans, or what you call ships for travel, or some people will say now spaceships. But all spaceships don't come from outer space. Some come from inner space. And dimensional space.
Right, absolutely. I want to put up, you shared with me, I'm putting up the mask.
Oh, yeah.
I'll put that up. Can you explain that? Yeah. So it's up on the screen right now.
Now, keep in mind, when the political conversion, or what you would call the more solidified sedition activity of overthrowing the republic, that comes from Muslim law that Obama talked about when he went to Egypt, etc., and the Honor-Honesty Confederation, which you know as the EQA, that's Honor-Honesty Confederation, took place during the Abraham Lincoln administration. And for those of you who are scholars and have done research, you will often find in the newspapers of the early 1859, 60, in that area, they'll have in different newspapers Abraham Lincoln dressed in Moorish garb. And as most of you know, Abraham Lincoln's nickname, which was given to him politically, was Africanus the First. And of course, that's to reflect his Moorish blood, because he was, mixed. Now, the deal of it is, this being shared with you by Dr. Naila is life mask of Abraham Lincoln. And this is taught in many, in some what you would call adeptus chambers, and also in some of Lincoln's papers, but for the most part, not taught in the Rockefeller and Frederick T. Gates school systems. And so she's sharing with you a view of Lincoln's life mask.
Explain for those who don't know what a life mask is. They take them.
A life mask, what they used to do also, and its tradition is African tradition. The same way they would do with many of the pharaohs or the rulers of the high house, etc. They would they would literally put like a wax or clay mask on their face and remove it and make a mask that would be a likeness or most likeness of their face, usually after their death or something like that. And that would be called a life mask. And so Dr. Nail is sharing with you a life mask. And this was shared with me by Brother Lord Anton Il. Of course, he does a lot of research, Genius mind he is.
Antimatic cell.
Yeah. So we're sharing it with you just to give you something to think about and to let you know that a lot of things that you've been told in history and in the politics at North America is not what you thought it was.
And the
not
pictures and the imagery that were shown.
Yes.
Is deceptive.
Yes.
And it's part of the reconstruction.
Yes. It's reconstruction. The concept that many people have with the period of Reconstruction is the idea that through the wars, they were reconstructing buildings all over the place. No, they were reconstructing history. They were reconstructing geography. They were reconstructing books. And they were the ongoing process of the Index Librorum Prohibitorum and Index Librorum Expurgatorius, which they loosely refer to as the Great Christian Book Burnings. And it's to bring us to darkness or to a lack of knowledge of ourselves, of geography, of land, of estates, etc. And this is again why they don't teach the truth that the political states that are taught to the people in contemporary times are actually a transliteration or a de facto rescission of the estates of the conquered people of the land, etc. Sometimes they call us Indians, Nagas, Aboriginals of the land, and also falsely since the 1930s also refer to some of the Naga tribes as Native American. These things are made up, but they're actually the Moors or the true Al-Moroccans of the land, i.e., and people who are less apt to be brave enough to just tell the truth like it is will just say melanated peoples rather than just tell the truth about who the people are, that they're Moors. And that's just the truth.
Yeah, just a lot of deception. A lot of deception.
It's necessary for them to rule. And keep in mind, a lot of things that they've done is not because they hate you, it's because you can't rule if you don't kill the history. And again, as you see what's going on today, one of the things that they're trying to do, you see them taking statues down all over the place, etc., and destroying a lot of information, is because they're trying to write another page and put the priesthood into the next millennia. And that's the truth. So that you can forget, so that the coming generations will not have these things as reference points. So since a lot of the history is being destroyed again to reduce reference points for the youth, we're sharing with you again Lincoln's life mask to show you even now you've been lied to.
Yeah. And if you look at his features, I mean, you
can see.
Somebody said in the chat, it looks like Dr. Sebi. But just the fact you can see the features are very, very.
And for those of you who do research in the archives, you understand why they refer to him as Africanus the First as a nickname, and why they would dress in satire. They would dress him in Moorish garb with his scimitar, etc. Particularly during the time when he was running for president. And of course, that administration was the last administration of the Republic. Keep that in mind, that all operative offices thereafter are de facto.
So up until that time,
it's Republic.
It was Republic, and it was probably largely Moors.
Nope. Now you understand again, for some of you who are researchers, right? When they showed the movie, they called it talkies at that time, the movie The Birth of a Nation at the palace, which they call the White House, or Casablanca, which means the White House. And you'll see them having Moors, senators and congressmen, and they tell them step down or die. And they'll have them in mockery, eating chicken bones and watermelon and acting a fool, that step and fetch it image that they have taught. You'll understand that a lot of our people are looking at that from the perspective of their training, particularly since the 1700s, called under the Carlos Linnaeus and Blumenbach psychology of racism. That's what that game is for mental controls. So that whole paradigm about race and stuff is in the 1700s. Does not go back in history. Keep that in mind. That's the last of the Republic, because that comes from the Honesty Confederation of Moors, as we brought the hybrid Europeans into government, teaching them government structure. And so the nature of the Constitution for the United States in its original Republic form, in harmony with a Lodial thought or Lodial construction and recognition of human rights, etc., being overthrown by the hybrid Germanic tribes, etc. And this is where you get your cotton wigs with the Democratic Party of the Kaiklos or the Ku Klux Klan, that with the missionary operations of the Circle Church and Chancery members to overthrow the Republic. And of course, those of you who study will go to the treaty, secret treaty of Verona, etc., and you could better understand the politics that you're dealing with today. And of course, that whole platform has run its course and is collapsing now. And of course, those who will look at the conjunction now with Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus, etc., they call it the conjunction or the reset in the cosmic world. In the political realm, they would call it the monetary system, for the old priesthood to take over moneta, or the alchemical energies of the sun, the moon, and Venus, which is gold, silver, and copper, and actually give you an abstract to put between you and your estates the concept of money, and they'll call it the electrical system or currencies, which is not money, and then project their false or fiat credit system, which is debt, etc., and pretend again that they're fixing the monetary system. The monetary system is the alchemical metals: gold, silver, copper. And if it's not gold, silver, and copper, don't talk about money, because they're just setting you on another course so they can rob you again. That is also referred to by the dark priesthood and by the members of the Circle Church and the Chancery of Fleet Street, England, answering to the Queen of England, the de facto Queen of England, answering to the Pope of Rome, represented by the Vexillum at Washington, District of Columbia, the three stars that you see, and with the upper bar, the upper world and the lower world. So you see the two bars and you see the three stars: Vatican, Circle Church and the Chancery, which is Westminster, London, England, and then of course under the corporate operations of the United States Corporation Company, registered in Austria, etc., and also with another branch registered with the Franciscan brother Francos, etc., and then symbolized with the conquest of the Moabites, with liberty sitting at the bay just above Sheik, what you call is New Jersey, just below the Empire State New York in the bay, and she has the 7 spires on her head, and you have the broken chain, you have the light of wisdom, etc., and it is an iron frame with a copper cladding, which means Venus, etc. And liberty is simply a duplication of the Moabitess. That's you, the Moabite woman. And of course, there's given to them by the Franciscan Brotherhood, and they will talk about in their history in Europe and in North America among the hybrid Europeans, as a gift for the conquering of the Corsairs, which is the Moors.
Oh, wow.
So that's liberty. That's your stuff too.
They named cars after us, haven't they?
Huh? Oh yeah.
Corsair. There was a car called a Corsair.
Corvair.
What was it?
And then Corvette is the little ships.
Corvettes are ships, right?
The little
Corvette,
ships.
okay.
And that's named after those little ships too. They're
Okay.
more ships. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
As a matter of fact, when they have their Masonic parades, they have little Corvair cars that represent those little ships.
Okay.
Because remember, they took over our trade routes. Because all your wars are actually trade wars. All the major wars, your wars, there appear to be other things. Most of them are about trade and them taking over our trade. And you can see them now. What is one of the emphasis of the wars that are going on now with members of the Roman Curia against the rest of the world war?
What wars are going on now? I've kind of forgotten.
Trade wars. Now you see them talking about China.
China, yeah.
They're talking about the Manchurians, whose gold they've been stealing since 1954. And so what they're doing, they're trying to reset their system, but keep in mind that they don't have the gold left to still back up their corruption.
But it seems, what is this? It seems like everybody, like the government's trying to get into the cryptocurrency. They're trying to get into they're trying to move us into more of away from any.
You know how you want to look at this thing all the time? I always tell people this. As for the operations of trade at the Maghreb, according to law, Constitution is supreme law of the land. Constitution is also the obligatory oath to all the treaties that supersede the Constitution, i.e., to the security and the securing of rights of the true sovereigns of the land or the people of the land. Now, by them abridging that, let's look at Article 1, Section 10, that no state shall make anything or coin anything but gold or silver coin for payment of debt. That is the money. And any authority that's used by anyone claiming to be government operating at the Maghreb must be a creature of the Constitution. And so if they're saying crypto or anything else, if it's not gold or silver coin, it's fiat. They're trying to take you from one fiat system that has collapsed. Because keep in mind, the world won't buy their treasury bonds. We've been telling you this for years, but we've been emphasizing it more often because of the politics. In these last 5 or 6 years, we've been telling you to take your fiat out of the banks, and also that you were going to have a feedback loop, that the world will stop buying U.S. Treasury bonds that they set up after 1861 and really accelerated in 1862. This is why you see a lot of congressional records have been altered or removed, so they don't tell you, so you don't recognize that they were actually overthrowing the republic. And this is back to the Lincoln administration. And one of the motivations for the assassination of Lincoln, to overthrow the republic. And so after this is why you see so much emphasis being put on their democracy platform, which is not the law of the land, which is actually mob rule.
So correct me if I'm wrong, when Lincoln was working to free the quote unquote slaves, were these in large part modern Europeans that were maybe in servitude as well as
so let's put it this way. Let's put it in more corrective light.
Okay, please.
Number one, the word slave is contemporary. Okay. It's not ancient.
Okay.
So even when they're talking about slavery in the ancient times, they're lying, because it's actually derivative from Slovakian. It's actually a hybrid European identity, Slovakian. So when many the czars of Russia were into the Slovakian nations and subdued them, etc., this is where you get to that subjugation takes on the connotation of Slovakian subjugation, or loosely they say slavery. So before that, the word slave in the connotative context of subjugation did not exist.
I mean, they had indentured servants.
Yeah.
And they had criminals.
Those are two different.
And all these folks that
they're two different situations.
Rejects from Europe were sent
yes.
here to work off.
Yes, and so what you're looking at during the Lincoln administration, really the concerted effort of the hybrid Germanic tribes or the German Dutch tribes, hybrid Europeans, overthrowing the Moorish nation of Islam. Okay. And that's what it really is. And then you get into allegorical stories that are taught in the Knights of Columbus, Knights of Malta, Masonry, symbolic, etc. And of course, they put the corona crown on, put your crown on. That's why they all wear the fezzes. And then, of course, the Eastern Stars will wear the white fez, symbolizing purity or the true matriarchy. You would rarely, if ever, see the sons wearing a white fez. That's because we're not worthy. Because we're not the real matriarch. Then you understand also why the priesthood don't have women in the House of Snakes or the Vatican, which is a duplication of Timbuktu. In case some people didn't know that.
The Vatican?
Oh, yes. It's duplication of the palace in Timbuktu. Almost all of your major erudition centers or power centers, most of the time in what we refer to as the more ancient world, they duplicated them. Usually what they built on one side of the world, they built on the other side. Yes. And that's a fact. Oh, yeah. So a lot of times, a lot of things that our people see that the hybrids have taken over, assume that they built that. That's not their stuff. That's your stuff. This is why people, once you really begin to study, there's a distinction, Roma and Rome. They're two different venues. You're Roma.
Okay.
That's with an A. And they're Rome with an E. But they claimed your stuff. They just changed it enough to make their claim. That ain't their stuff. Vatican is yours.
In that it was built by us.
That too. You got to remember. Iberia, Phoenicia is the European peninsula. Even when when they talk about in different secret societies, they tell the story about Queen Dodo, daughter of the king of Tyre, and they also talk about Phoenicia, Nefertiti's daughter. Mm-hmm. That's Europe. That's what you call now Germany, Czechoslovakia, all that area. That's your stuff. See, but mentally, the people are separated from that because they keep looking at the modern, or what you would call the hybrid European, and they think all of that came from them. That's why when you do research, you'll find that all the cathedrals and the universities of Europe and Al-Andalus, which they call Spain after the fall of the Moors, mm-hmm. all those were built by Moors. That's your stuff. This is, again, when people really, really study African history and culture, and this is where you have the lot of the so-called scholars among our own are charged with fraud because they won't teach that. Because they have people thinking, as soon as you talk African, they have you thinking only Asia Soul, that's South Asia, that you call Africa today, and it never dawns on them, North, Central, South America, and Iberia, now called Europe. And so when you see, just like when they take you to all the secret societies and to the Eastern Star lodges and the Masonic lodges, they'll talk about everything Moorish and Ionic architecture. What they just told you, Moorish and Moorish architecture. Or they'll say Mediterranean rather than say Moorish.
Moorish. Okay, so even the Mediterranean it's a fictitious depiction, cover up.
They're talking area rather than just say Moorish, or even when rather than say Iberian or Moorish Latin, they'll say Spanish.
Hey, do me a favor. Do this to your hair. This is for the guy. No, pull it up. Do like this. This is for the guy who claims you have a wig on because you can't possibly have on your hair.
Oh well,
that's your hair. Yeah. So Wishel Ziwi, whatever your name is, it's not a wig. It's like no way you can have all your hair at your age.
Well, I cut it every month and a half.
Stuff on this.
I cut it every.
Why aren't you paying attention?
I'm a barber.
No, listen. Why aren't you paying attention to the teaching instead of wondering whether or not he has a wig or not? He is not wearing a wig. Trust me.
I cut it every month and a half because it would get much longer. I just keep it down.
People are so crazy. I didn't mean just to, you know. Yeah. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna let him have that one. Okay, but the fact of the matter is that there's so much that we have been deceived about, but right now we have this opportunity, if you will, to grasp and to learn a truth that we didn't have before. Yes. And I think here's one thing I feel about truth. Truth, there's something about us, how we're made, that when truth is heard, we know it's true. We know. But even if we've been accepting the lie all along, all of a sudden truth comes around, knocks the lie out. Fingers like, oh, wait a minute. There's a resonance with us. It resonates with you.
Now, this is where, like Jawali, Prophet Noble Jawali would say, he says, in reference to the truth being told, he says, my children will recognize the truth because it has a sound to it. He said, truth has a sound to it and falsehood does too. And my children will recognize the truth.
Somebody's asking whether if Trump is going to stay in office.
See, it's not, let's look at this. Remember I said even before all this stuff started, and when you've heard me say over the last couple of years that Trump is assigned.
Right, you said that.
He's assigned. It has nothing to do with whatever their politics are. See, you have to look at things. For all of you who are seers and those who have insight, we understand the mass movement of the dark priesthood to get Trump out of office. And like I've always said to you all, don't confuse what I've said about Trump with me supporting Trump necessarily himself. True. Trump represents an idea, a psychology of correction, even if he's drawn back into the swamp himself. However, what Trump represents is an assignment, whether he likes it or not, or whether anyone else likes it or not. I don't care what kind of numbers they've told you. You've got to start looking at things more ethereally and more spiritually. When I say to you that Trump is assigned, Trump is assigned. I wouldn't care if they told you that Biden, and that's nothing personal against him either, because all of them are still Wigglemores fighting over our estate. Keep that in mind. Trump is assigned. Trump will be in that seat because he was signed to do a job. And for the other hybrids that interfere will find themselves in the next few months either not breathing or in jail.
It was interesting. I saw I don't know whether it was CNN or no, it wasn't CNN because they don't report truth. Maybe it was Fox or something, or it may have been Newsmax. But they showed a clip of Biden talking about I don't even know what the subject matter was, but he kept saying, well, President-elect Harris, he kept calling her Kamala.
That's the plan.
President-elect Harris.
See, let's look at it this way. Because we don't want to get in, because it's not the subject, but it is the subject, because we're talking sedition.
Yeah.
Anybody and their dog knows that you can't have 25% more so-called voters voting than the voting rolls that exist. That means that you can't get 18 eggs in a dozen egg carton, no matter how you look at it. That's what took place with this election. But we already know that. Let's not even go there. Keep this in mind. Let's look at what's really going. This is back to reset. This is back to conjunction, squaring of things. The platform of the Circle Church and the Chancery has collapsed. The fiat platform of the U.S. Treasury bonds set up since 1861 and reinforced 1862 and used ever since for human trafficking, for the overthrow of the Order of Islam in the Western Hemisphere and the reconstruction of the history, with the Whiggamore Party splitting and them competing with each other under the fraud of claiming to be sovereign and claiming their private corporation war platform known as the United States Trading Corporation, promoting that platform as a country, which it has never been. It has ran its course and is imploding. Although the Pope's army is indeed strong and is the only reason why the United States Corporation Company is still operative and not collapsed, though it has been bankrupted 3 or 4 times. The only thing keeping them awake is their network around the planet as the Vatican operatives and the members of the Circle Church and Chancery. You would know them as lawyers and attorneys, or the barristers of England, etc., through their infiltration of other nation states with their Inquisition operations, meaning that most of your so-called leaders in the modern world of Asia and Africa are actually puppets and not, in fact, not really assigned by the real people of the land for the most part, except in a few places. So they put this network is actually around the world. That network is referred to loosely as the deep state. For those who really know what it is, there's the Roman Curia members of the Circle Church and Chancery, etc., and that the concept that the general masses are given in this platform of sedition of nation states, it is recognized by you, but not by them. Therefore, the passport for shipping and trade, which is imposed upon you even in your physical person, called passports, which is for ships, they themselves don't use. That's just to control the masses. So whereas you, me, and most people who have been taught by the Rockefeller and Gates Foundation are under the idea that the sovereignty of these nation states are recognized, it is only for your training, but it is not recognized in the political forum. For they travel between nation states, etc., without passport among themselves. They don't tell you that. So the sovereignty of states have been abridged a long time ago. Now that's their platform, and essentially, for those who've done research, particularly with the fiat system that has been operating on the world, whereas the Rothschild's mother said that her sons would rule the world, she meant it because she was also what you call in a sense still daughter of revolution, even though you're talking about revolution before the DAR here. And when they say that, give me control of a nation's money and I care not what laws that are made, meaning that all of your nations, your so-called nation states, pretty much are vassal states of the Circle Church and Chancery and this network of the German-Dutch Franciscan Brotherhood. And most things they deal with, even when they're dealing with the regencies of the Inquisition revenue extortion systems, which you know today as the IRS. That's why you see them exercising their powers around the world, even going across other nation states and claiming the estates where you'll see different people who have amassed so-called wealth and moved it into other states, Switzerland, Austria, and different places like that. You'll see the U.S. corporation go in there and seize accounts. because your concept of the sovereignty of nations that has been taught to you is not recognized by them, because most of these rulers are under their thumb. Not unlike when some of you saw the clip or the film where a person who's running for president at the Northgate Corporation in this day caused a prosecutor in Ukraine to be removed from office for criminal investigation. And you've seen that take place. And then they try to blame that on Donald Trump. That's because what you think is going on the planet has not been going on the planet. The fact of the matter is all of those platforms are imploding. The assignment of Donald J. Trump is to clean up this mess. He did not necessarily want the job. He was asked, and I'll tell you just to keep it simple for most of you so you can do some more research. Many of the admirals and generals who were dismissed from the military operations of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and that would be many of your hierarchy in both the Marines, the Navy, and the Army, have been meeting for years, and particularly since they assassinated John F. Kennedy, in conjunction and astrologically, also in accordance with numbers and astrological movement, in harmony with the overthrow of the Lincoln administration, including Kennedy's secretary was named Lincoln. You got to look at all these timings. And
Lincoln's secretary
yes,
was named Kennedy or something.
Yes, but the real everything they do is on the math. Mm-hmm. Meaning that although they don't teach the people the truth about religion, they observe the rules. And this is how they transfer a lot of their karmic debt on us. And that's called the national debt that they're talking about is fraud. That's their debt that they're putting on us and against our states. This is why, again, because the world won't buy their bonds anymore. This is why they put so many people out on the street trying to get people to sign for the census. See, because as soon as you do that social security number that's set up by Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1933 with their last bankruptcy, and then you do your autograph, they're able to make bonds on that. They even offered people stimulus where they give them checks. And these people don't know that as soon as they do, that now they're in debt for that. It's not free. Because remember, they steal it from the people in the first place, because that government platform has no finance. They steal it from the people. And many of the funds were people who've been working for years in their different business and their so-called contributions to hedge funds and Social Security, etc.
401ks.
Yes, that's why I've been telling people for years it's 401k, because they've been stealing it and actually laundering it back to themselves. And this is where you see them, which Trump exposed lately, where they've been contributing billions of debt notes to other nation states. They actually been doing that for years, funneling the finance back to themselves.
So they're foreign. They're foreign. They're the foreign.
Foreign aid.
Foreign aid. Foreign.
That's a cover up for money laundering.
Even with this current fight about over the second round of stimulus, it was so full of what they call pork.
That's what the pork is. That's what the pork is.
Millions of dollars to study fish.
Why do they call it pork? Because remember, it's anti-Saba, anti-Jew, because we don't eat pork.
Okay.
You got everything they do has a meaning. It absolutely nothing that they do is done without forethought. And there's nothing that they do without a knowledge of tradition and culture and the concept of corrupting tradition and culture or using dark side Babylonian magic, if you get the point. There are other problems, and not unlike what we talked about before. One of the interesting things about the hybrid Franciscans, Albions, is that their tendency to always use dark magic is because the connection to the universal energy requires melanin. And so by virtue of their recessive nature, their tendency to move to the negative or the recessive is why you see so many hybrid Europeans, even when they're eating the animals. It's common for them to love rare flesh. You'll see, like I used to be a first order cook years ago at Jimmy Penrose, right? Right off of Exit 4 in Jersey. I used to be first order cook. And they used to compensate me very well. You know, one of the things I didn't have, I go to work in the dark, come home in the dark. And when you're a cook or a chef at a restaurant, that has a lot of to do with their reputation. So that becomes your life. And that's one of the reasons I left, really, because I had other things to do. And I had multiple skills. But I never got rest, if you get the point. But one of the things sometimes, and it was mostly Europeans would come there. It's kind of like one of the upper end type restaurants. And almost all the time, filet mignon and porterhouse steaks, rare, bleeding. Yeah. Some of you just turn it over one time, and they love it like that. Now, and not that other people don't, but you'll find that common with them. It's almost like they love blood. It's not condemnation. It's just part of their culture. If you see most Africans, if they cook the animal flesh, they cook it well done. If not well done, moderately, you won't see, it won't be bleeding, that's for sure. But you'll see a lot of the hybrid Albions really love rare, blood. And then some of them, and even among many of them, you see them even make blood sausage. You'll see them more commonly as a practice among the hybrids, and not that some Africans don't do that. Do you understand? But you find that that's a common cooking practice among hybrid Europeans. So when you look at the Babylonian culture, because remember, everything has what you call positive and negative side. That they have a tendency to always go to the dark magic, meaning that if you give them just like when you deal with the suns, right? You'll see even today, as we're coming into the Aquarian light, right? You'll see them accelerating, throwing chemtrails and things, trying to block the sun. Anti-sun, whereas we people love the sun, and you can see those tendencies. And it's not to be confused or not to paint this picture of good and bad in the sense that people generally look at it, but the hybrids have a tendency to always go to the negative more often, and so that's where it creates what you call cultural clashing between the Asiatic nations and the hybrid nations. You'll see that most of your wars are initiated by Constantinians. And it's not that Africans haven't warred with each other. Do you understand what I'm saying? When you see that merciless, bloodthirsty, unjustified, constant day in, day out warring around the world, going to and fro the earth, devouring nations, look at the initiators, and most of them are hybrids, of hybrid Germanic tribes. That's just a fact. And
it's in their nature.
That's the point.
It's in their nature, yeah. So it's not a lot to...
So that's where a lot of your sedition comes in. And so after the hybrids took over.
Let's remind everyone, because we didn't have 1,600 people watching when we put up the definition of sedition.
Yeah, read it again.
Sedition is a serious felony punishable by fines of up to 20 years in prison, and it refers to the acts of inciting revolt or violence.
Yes.
Against the lawful authority with the goal of destroying or overthrowing it. And that's exactly what happened. That's what happened to us.
Yes, of course. Yeah. It was overthrown. And this is, again, when people, who don't understand it, for those of you who are on the East Coast, take a trip to the DAR, or the Daughters of the American Revolution, at the District of Columbia at the Marble Building with the marble steps and do a little research on Dolly Madison and the Daughters of the American Revolution. It'll open your eyes on a lot of things.
It sure will.
On the politics, and also why when some people say when they're schooling you on the legitimate platform of the Union of States that the United States, where you see it small with it spelled with a small U, or States United, and you see the brass plaque in there, just inside about 20 foot inside the doorway on the wall. You can see why it has a small U. So a lot of things that you have not been taught in school, you'll begin to learn. This is again why we used to do it yearly, but things have become so broad and active. We don't do it as often. Well, we used to take the people on a trip to Washington or to.
We went to Arlington, right?
Yeah. Alexandria.
Yeah. That's what
taking them to the House of Daughters of the American Revolution, and of course the DAR manual that is used for civic instruction. In many political states, and of course in the jurisdiction of the United States, this actually comes from our principles of civilization. It is issued and is referred to as the DAR manual, is issued by the Daughters of the American Revolution. So if, like, say, people come from other political jurisdictions and they take a test in civics, it's the DAR manual.
Really?
Yeah. Uh-huh. And I gave I gave Tamara a copy for her to share with you. That's what this is. Yes.
Someone's asked, I'm not sure if you know what this is. I don't. Doesn't mean you don't. Wanted you to speak on the Miami Circle. Do you know what that is?
The Miami
Circle? I don't know what that is.
They'd have to give us a little bit more information so I can relate.
You have to tell us what that's about, because
so I can relate to it.
We don't know if it's some phenomena that showed up somewhere or whatever, but but I'm glad that you could say honestly. Sometimes we don't know.
Yeah,
we don't know everything.
Yeah.
Maybe they should share what they know about the
and then I may be able to relate now, because usually when things like that are said, it's usually some political activity or some geographical or geological activity that may be referenced, and so put it in perspective or in context.
Right, please. Someone else was asking you to talk more about Trump, but what about this? What's his name? Mark? Is it Mark Christopher or Christopher? He's the one that talks about he's a postmaster.
Let's look at this. Even when you don't talk about Anna von Rees and also him, it's not taking anything from them. As they are speaking is what you're supposed to be speaking. They're speaking up because they're trying to restore. Keep in mind, as a couple years ago, when we started emphasizing or re-emphasizing the dissolution of what they had cast as the so-called middle class, as they're losing their economic and estate foundation and stability, have started telling the truth about the politics, and also claiming or restoration of the claiming of the republic, which is actually your Moorish foundation. Now, most of them are hybrids. As they're speaking is how you're supposed to be speaking. This is, again, why over the last few years we've been encouraging the people to activate or to reactivate the diversity of their nationality platform in jurisprudence on international national law and treaty enforcement, which is consular venue. That's what Article 3, Section 2 actually is, going back to the treaties. And this is also why a few years back that I did the book, Constitution and Treaties to restore that concept, because our thoughts, the general thoughts of the people was that the Constitution for the United States is totally separate from us, when actually that's their obligation to do business and equity on our land in respect to the treaties which supersede it. This is why a lot of times when we're teaching treaty law, we'll talk about treaty of as the mother treaty. We'll say Treaty of Peace and Friendship, 1786, 1787, Ordinance of 1787, then the Constitution for the United States, 1788, to look at that sequence of time and also the superior positions, and then Article 3 of the Constitution for the United States and Article 6, which is referred to as the Supremacy Clause, and their obligation to the treaties as being the supreme law of the land. That's why you see me do that book, to reestablish the mental concept of the connectivity of them. Because a lot of times people dismiss the Constitution as having nothing to do with us, and it absolutely does. And then you have to also recognize that King George III, etc., is a melanated Moor. And it's actually after his death that the hybrid Germanics start taking over Germany, and all those castles, those are Moorish castles in Germany.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yes. And so the people's concepts, just like when they're talking about New Year, being January the 1st. So, and then the hybrid Europeans celebrating and doing the Mummers Parade at Philadelphia, Saccamaxon, every year. And you notice that this year they canceled it.
Right.
They had no funding. You got to really understand what's really going on here. It's more than what you see on the surface. They're using coronavirus as no funding. So the system has really collapsed really already. What you have is the people actually being behind the curve. So so when you look at the fall of the Red House, January the 1st.
The Alhambra?
Yeah, the Alhambra. And even when you look, and this is redundant, when Michelle went to the Alhambra, when Obama went to Egypt, so now you look at Egypt, capital dominion of the Moorish Empire, chapter 47, circle 7 Quran. They go and leave the jurisdiction of the North Gate. And contrary to tradition, because remember, regardless of all the negative that they've said about them, you got to look at these processes and symbolisms. The tradition has been when the president for the United States leaves the jurisdiction of the North Gate and goes to another political jurisdiction, the first lady follows with him and they're presented together. Notice that when they went, they triangulated. He went to Hikupta, Egypt, capital dominion, the Moorish Empire. And one of the things that he specifically spoke was that the American Constitution comes from Muslim law. Key. She triangulates, go to the Alhambra in Al-Andalusia, that they call Spain after the fall of the Red House. The Mummers Parade, January the 1st. The Alhambra fell under Boabdil, who gave it up rather than have the Constantinians, who they'll say is the Christians, burn it down. Right? So he gave up the Alhambra January the 1st, near midnight. 1492, pardon me. That's why 1492 is used as an axis year in history for the transference of the power from the Moorish sultans and kings, etc., into the hands of the Albion Germanic tribes.
So what is the significance then of Colombo? So-called Colombo.
Christopher Colombo is not necessarily a man, but an era.
That's right.
Is an era of time, just like
because that's 1492. Also,
yes, that's what Christopher Colombo sailed the ocean blue, 1492,
right.
And 1492, America was invaded, or what you call seriously colonized type thing. Mm-hmm. And so but it actually symbolizes an era.
So this the Nina Pinta and the Santa Maria thing.
The triple ships.
The reason why they can't find them because they didn't exist?
No, these were symbols and actuality shippings. But understand that Colombo was actually one, or what they represent as Colombo, is really an expedition. And the one that they call Christopher Columbus, Cristofero Colombo, with an assignment, but it's not just totally himself. With that, just like they give the revolutionary period, they'll put so much emphasis on George Washington himself when it's actually a group of men. Mm-hmm. Do you understand? But that's as a marker.
So he's the front. He's the face of it.
He's the face of it, and for pretty much fictitious in relation, because it's an era of activity. Okay. And so 1492 is the fall of the Alhambra. And so this is why for Rome, even though you have an astrological relationship dealing with Ios coming out of the tomb or the ascension. So now we have like Janus the 1st, January the 1st. So now, but after the 25th, so when the 21st, the entry of the winter solstice, Ios is put in the tomb. So Jesus is put in the tomb and he stays in the tomb 3 days. Then he comes back to life. So after the 25th, he starts the ascension again. That's descending unto heaven. Mm-hmm. And so now for that on an astrological position in different parts of the earth, that would be the new year. And in other parts of the earth, it would be March the 21st as the spring, particularly in this area, right? So when you're looking at the different celebrations of the rise of the sun, you would also look at the location of the earth, and you look at the cosmological relationship of the position geographically of the earth and the traditions. Once you understand that, you understand the relationship of all the traditions and customs around the world and the different cycle placements, or what we call dates, with the chronos, even chronos, the word chronos, mm-hmm. And Zeus and Ios and Jesus and Diana, etc. Because even when you're talking, the image of Horus, where you get hour from, mm-hmm. the word hour yeah. Placement, cycle placement, and Isis, also Astarte, Ishtar. So that together, a lot of people don't understand that image together is called Jesus, not just the sun. This is another reason why they don't tell the people the truth about religion metaphors and how they evolve, because they will lose control over the people. So when people see the image, that image of the statue of Mary and Jesus, symbolic, is really Isis and Horus, also Diana, all the same thing. All right. And so essentially you're talking about the rise of the sun. So the celebration of the hybrid Germanic tribes of the fall of the Moors, right? Mm-hmm. Or what you call the true sons of Isis, Amun-Ra, Elohim, i.e. Israel, us. That's why you'll see people who really study the culture will say the Asiatics or the Canaanites and Moabites are the real Jews. Of course, that's a cover-up of the Sabian history and culture. So rather than say the Sabian Moors, they'll say Jew. Or those who have the... So when the people say Jew, again, we know that's designation or cover for the culture. That's so-called Jew don't really exist. If you get the point. And this is, again, when you do the study, when you know that a lot of the priests are deliberately hiding the truth or really not willing to tell the truth because their platforms would collapse. Mm-hmm. This is, again, why as people are beginning to awaken, that people are falling away from organized religion because they're finding out that they have deceived the people. Mm-hmm. And most of the stuff they're telling the people not to do, they've been practicing all the time. Absolutely. All kinds of debauchery, including the laying on of hands, the buns. Well, yeah, you got to watch them when they start that laying on of hands.
I want to read a scripture to the King James Version of Galatians 4:24. Let me go back to 4:23. Maybe go back a little bit further.
I know you.
Galatians 4:22 through 24, King James. Mm-hmm. For it is written that Abraham had two sons.
Yeah.
the one by a bondmaid, the other by a free woman.
Yes.
But he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh, but he of the free woman was by promise. Which things, verse 24, are an allegory, for these are the two covenants. The one from Mount Sinai, which gendereth to bondage, which is Agar. For this Agar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and answereth to Jerusalem, which now is and is bondage with her children. But Jerusalem, which is above us, is free, which is the mother of us all. So they're telling us.
And it's actually Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. But they're saying in verse 20, Galatians 4:22 through about 26, that the story of Abraham and his two sons, which has been preached from here,
is allegorical.
Is an allegory.
Yes. Yes. And this is why when you study culture, you must know that these are metaphors and allegories. And when they're told, now that would be anthropomorphic, right? Mm-hmm. So from the anthropomorphic perspective, people are looking for a physical Abraham.
So, but just
and it's allegorical.
You don't know what an allegory is. An allegory is a story, a poem, or picture that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a moral or political one.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's a story.
Because now that's how African culture has been promoted. And that would be called anthropomorphic.
How many people run about how about they from Abraham's seed?
Yes, anthropomorphic. And so what you have in the anthropomorphic story as an example with the hybriding, which is a political and a genetic reality, right? Mm-hmm. In Central Africa, right? Ancient Central Africa, often known as Old Amexem, right? Mm-hmm. And it's told in the book of Genesis, genetics, with children of Rebecca, right? Mm-hmm. And you have Esau and Jacob, and they'll say Jacob, and you see the hairy, ruddy one, and you see Esau, and you see one grasping the heel of the others. So the allegorical story is, it doesn't tell you that they're twins. They come from the same womb, right? But they're not twins. They're two different manner of people. Two different nations. That's giving you the allegorical story of the hybriding that took place in Central Africa. And that's the origin of the red man. And how do you say red man in Gaelic? It'd be Roman. So that's the Romans that lynched Jesus, you see? Mm-hmm. The Son of God. And so this is also the tradition of them what? Lynching us. This is why you see everything is taken actually from basically the Septuagint, the Bible, which is really your culture. And this is back to where a lot of people, when they start getting African culture, they think that the Bible is ours. That is an allegorical story of African culture, period. Has nothing to do in the concept that people have with hybrid Europeans. Now, you'll see a lot of our people say, well, in the Bible, they had some dark people here and dark people there. No, the Bible is African.
It's dark people.
It's duh. They're melanated.
Matter of fact, so when people started getting leprosy.
The leper is the hybrid.
There you go. That's when you find
where it talks about the people, the leper, and that they were taken to the place of the rock and placed behind the rock until their lesions was all white. What you're simply talking about is anti-sun mutation, or what is called skin cancer. Mm-hmm. This is why leprosy, as they say, the lepers, they would cast them out, but leprosy itself is not contagious in the sense that people think of it, because it's skin cancer. Mm-hmm. And this is another reason why they were taken to the land of Angles, where the temperature and the atmosphere was more compatible with their skin. And from the land of Angles, and it's like when they talk about the Isle of Patmos in the Bible, Patmos is right geographically off of the area that you call Turkey today. And then from that point, they were taken to the land of Angles. And this is where you get Anglican from. Yes. And then, of course, England or England. That's why when those of you who are scholars in geography, etc., learn that when the Moors ruled, what you call England today, or that part of Iberia, was called the land of Angles.
Well, listen. We have over 1,600 people watching. If you have not pressed like, if you have not, we only need about 300 more subscriptions or subscribers to hit 10,000. I think we should be able to hit 10,000 tonight. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please, the official House of Reawakening Minds. I'm just taking a station identification, pause for the cause. I don't say this all the way through, but give us a thumbs up, share if you have not, and definitely if you're not subscribed, please subscribe, because you don't want to miss our upcoming broadcast.
Yes.
And if you're subscribed, I'm now sending out notifications also myself to those who are subscribed. Yes. So please, before we end this, would you please do us a favor and subscribe to the official House of Reawakening Minds? And of course, I've been scrolling underneath along with other ads that we definitely need and we desire your support of the House of Reawakening Minds. This is our labor of love for you all. And, if 1,416 is going up, if the almost 1,800 of you on here would all send one note, it would be great. But I know you won't, because most of you won't. Not because you can't, but just because you won't. But we won't stop doing what we're doing. But we appreciate those of you who do support us. And because you support us, we're able to keep it going. And I'm also able, when Grand Sheik comes on here, he gives and pours out of the depth of his soul. And he is deserving of double honors. And so he doesn't ask for anything, but he deserves to be compensated when he stops what he's doing to come here to do this. So please go to that Cash App, cash.me, or the PayPal, and we would greatly appreciate your support. I just needed to say that. I know you generally do say that, but also we just want you to know that we appreciate you, but we also want to solicit your support. We don't ask you or tell you how much. We just, every bit, we even send back, it's easier to send back thumbs up and hearts on Cash App, but let me tell you, even if you don't get an email back on PayPal, we appreciate it. We absolutely appreciate it.
And as an interjection, I just want to say, y'all excuse me for, I'm holding back sneezes. We had noodles.
No, you made them. They were
I made them. And we put extra packs of cayenne pepper.
No, you put extra packs.
Yeah, extra packs. And me and her, we've been trying to hold our sneezes back because our eyes are running and our noses. This is funny. So you all have to excuse that. Also, I want to interject. Guess what? We got a new stock of printer, because I've been asking her for a minute. Look, Dr. Naila, you're going to have to print some more, because so many people were asking me. And she only had a couple copies before, and she said, I am sending my last copies out. So anyway, we got a new stock of books of her first printing of poetry for those who want it, etc. You already know how to get in contact with Dr. G. And those of you who've been riding with Dr. G, office hours with Dr. G, and every once in a while, she'll share some of her insight. And the beautiful thing is that she puts it in poetic structure. And she is really, 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 how would you say? Because I'm a poet myself. Actually, I really respect.
You wrote the foreword.
Oh yeah, but
you wrote the foreword too.
I'm unimportant. This is what's important. So make for those of you who are listening, go ahead, write for this and put this by your bed. And every once in a while, when you go to, because I got a couple of them. Oh, I got one left. Come to think of it, yeah, because I gave my other one. But anyway, I was buying them and giving them away. But this is very rewarding Poetry is the musings of an undercover writer, Dr. Naila Bakari Gilliam. We call her Dr. G. And it is so inspiring. It's a reward. So do yourself a favor and order one today.
Go back to Tuesday night when I had Sister Na Kakoi Zinzeli Aziza Zinzeli Kevin.
Oh, I got a chance to see her tonight.
Yeah, she's an
beautiful.
Awesome griot poet, and we had it's right here on the official House of Reawakening Minds channel. Go back and look at that grown folks talk.
Yeah, I love that
show from Tuesday. Those of you who were on there,
she's a poet too.
Yeah, we went back and forth. My girl Sam Banjo can vouch for me. We had a really good show on Tuesday, and the Friday before that. If you missed it, please go back and look at my exclusive interview on December 25th that I did with Mrs. Dr. Sebi.
Oh yeah,
which was an awesome interview, and I'm very grateful for her coming on this show.
Oh yeah,
because she didn't let Nick Cannon interview her, but
a lot of energy and a lot of knowledge and a lot of back to your culture that she shared with us.
Right. So go back to that, and I got a treat coming up in January. I got Magus 9 coming on the show.
All right.
For Real Nagas. And
all right.
We got stuff coming up that we want you to support us, and so that we can keep on bringing forth what we're doing. Even in the midst of what's going on, I just want you to know that if you will stay positive, if you will focus on what we want, one thing we can agree on, we want peace. We want respect. We want this love. We want this
the upliftment of humanity,
and we have to put our energy there. We have to put our thoughts there. Turn the live vision off, please. I don't see how anybody who is conscious can look at mainstream media, and even some of what's on YouTube. You need to turn away from. You need to make sure that whatever you're taking in is positive, uplifting. Meditate, clean food, clean water. You know what I mean? A little bit, get some sunshine, vitamin D, the real kind. And if you can't, take the tablets. And as Grand Sheik said, get your vitamin C. Get you some
vitamin D
and C, and get you some sea moss. I made some bomb seeds. I got some.
We're going down and get some more.
I made some sea moss gel. Thank you, Brother Walter, that sent it from Trinidad. That's the most.
Good stuff.
That's the good stuff. Clean. I made it, and it. No fishy smell, no nothing. But listen, eat right, think right, speak right. You know what I mean?
Want for others what you want for yourself.
There you go, and then exhibit it. Exude it. Don't get rid of the anger. I know you have reason to be, but we are now in an energetic space where whatever you focus on,
purification,
you create. So let's create love. Let's create gratitude. Let's create forgiveness. Yeah, they did stuff to us, but guess what? We did stuff to them.
Yes.
So
it is.
Go to balance. Let's get to a place of balance.
Yes.
Be what you want people to be to you.
Yes.
You have to. We have to.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Absolutely.
That's your rule.
Absolutely.
And if there's anything you need to know about religion, know that rule, and the rest falls in place.
Yeah. So
I say we love to do good and love to get rid of evil.
Somebody asked if you could sing a song.
I can. Yeah, I can't sing that song.
You probably were going to try to make me do a poem. So yeah, you should sing a song.
Like what?
I don't know. You can sing something.
I don't know.
People don't know. He can sing. He has a Let me see what he can sing that I've heard him sing. Yeah, sing that. Come on, Gracie.
I was down at I went to the flea market the other day. For those of you in the area of Chakamoxon in Philadelphia, I was at the place they call Jerry's Corner. That's where they have like a lot of Africans come there and sell stuff. And the last time I was there, not this past week, but before, one of my good friends, Kev, who's a DJ, and they've been actually operating in Chakamoxon in the Philadelphia area, and a lot of times they have karaoke and I was coming through there, and it's a sister in there who sells jewelry, African jewelry and stuff like that. And I go in there and I get earrings for my daughter and my nieces, etc., which I always do when I go through there to support the sister, as well as when I go see my sisters and stuff. My sister.
You're trying to get away from singing this song.
No, they asked me to sing.
Okay.
So I.
Okay. That's all right. I'm just trying to make
it. And so they was having this contest there, so they asked me to sing, so I sang.
What did you sing?
I won the golden mic.
What did you sing?
Ray Charles song. You Don't Know Me.
Go ahead. Okay.
But I'm not gonna sing that.
We'll sing something else.
Oh well. I mean, you put me on the spot, so
I sure am. You put me on the spot all the time.
All right. You give your hand to me, and then you said hello, and I could hardly speak. My heart was beating so, and anyone can tell. You think you know me well, but you don't know me. You don't know the one who dreams of you at night and longs to kiss your lips and longs to hold you tight. To you, I'm just a friend. That's all I've ever been. Girl, you don't know me. I never knew the art of making love, though my heart aches with love for you. Afraid and shy, I let my chance go by. A chance that you might love me too. You give your hand to me, and then you said goodbye. I watched you walk away beside that lucky guy. You'll never, never, never know the one who loves you so. Girl, you don't know me. I ain't gonna finish it.
That's beautiful. I heard that Jackie Wilson kind of.
That is Ray Charles.
But it had a Jackie Wilson kind of. Your voice kind of has that vibrato. I am. Clapping.
Oh please!
I'm clapping. All the folks.
Like really, please.
Like all these folks clapping with me.
Let me tell y'all, this cayenne pepper is coming out my nose now because we were heated up when we came up here trying to not to sneeze.
Sam Banjo told me to
our eyes was running. I had so much cayenne pepper.
I know. Sam Banjo told me to tell you no more peanut butter sandwich because Dr. Sebi's wife said no peanuts.
Oh, all right.
So no, but anyway, we thank you. Let me see. That was awesome. It was awesome. It was awesome. They said, okay, Taj. See, we ended this one on a wow. Let me see the comments. Let's move real quick. Terrence, okay. Red Sheik, many intelligent. Yeah, Terrence Lyles, he's a singer. Spoke with him the other day. Okay, Christopher. Okay, thank you. It's just the comments are flowing and going and everything is everything. We appreciate you all. We really, really do appreciate you. That's right. He does have a very, very beautiful voice. And every time I get a chance to record him or something, I definitely put it out there. So you can say he is a multifaceted, multi-talented Grand Sheik that we have. Sade Riddell said that gave me great vibes. Yep, that's what it's all about. Could listen to you all day. Indeed, awesome. Taj's talents know no bounds. That was good.
Oh,
that was amazing. Yep.
Oh, right, was not.
Love the positive energy. We are at 5:36.
And wish we could have shared some of that noodles with you with the cayenne pepper, because
Let
we
me
was
tell
here
y'all
fighting back.
something. That stuff was so hot. He says he put 2 bags of the spicy
Cayenne pepper.
I said you could have put like a half of one instead of 2 whole ones. It was so hot. So I'm over here like
eyes tearing, nose running.
I'm putting my hands up like wipe your nose. Wipe your nose.
Yes. Oh, we cayenne down with vitamin C.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's brother Abdullah Bey. Thank you. Appreciate it. We appreciate you too. Somebody says, "Oh, girl, Sheik, you gotta sang more." Let's get that's right. Give us the thumbs up. We after all is said and done, it's all about love. It's all about
being together,
positive energy, and all of that stuff. And please, like I said, yes, thank you, Brother Jaleel. Thank you for reminding them to please subscribe. I want to see that number get hit to 10,000 mark, and then after that, 10 times that. But I'm not doing it for whatever. But I just think it's a lot more. I know there are a lot mores out there that need to know about the official House of Reawakening Minds channel and what we're doing. That's all.
And we're always here for the people. Right. So be here for the house.
Absolutely. So in this 2020, we're going to try to bring. Try means you're not ever going to do that. In 2020, we're going to bring you more and more presentations
and diversity of thought,
diversity of voices. We just need to make sure that we're doing and giving you all what you want, and most importantly, what you need,
and liberating humanity as much as we can.
Right. So, thank you for the song. Glad to hear both of you laugh and enjoy the moment sharing with all of us. Yes, awesome. Yes, go back and look at Tuesday night's presentation, Grown Folk Talk. That was full of poetry and fun. My sister and I did poetry back and forth and had some real poignant conversation. We had a moment where we were able to really, we hope, inspire a young woman to not commit suicide during that presentation. So, we're always about whatever we can do.
Uplifting fallen humanity for real and being down to earth about it.
Yes.
And removing everything mysterious or spooky.
Yep.
Let's get real. Let's grow up.
Yep. So
put away our childish things.
That's right.
And start acting like divine and stop faking it.
Well, we thank you. We are almost at we have 3 minutes to go. We don't have to go to the very end. Thank you, Grand Sheik and Dr. G, for another great broadcast. I love you both. We love you too, Sister Fariel. It's 2021. Did I say it was another year? Okay. If I said 2020, I didn't mean it. I don't know what, or maybe they just put that there. Because I definitely know it's 2021 because I've given 2020 the boot. I literally have said good riddance to 2020.
Yes.
And anything you want to say, Grand Sheik, in our last 2 minutes?
Again, like we say, the House of Reawakening Minds is here to really, with unbiased minds and with the purest hearts that we can bring, to help the people, help liberate humanity and want the good for humanity as we want for ourselves, and learn to forgive and forgive yourself first, etc. And look for the good in others and give them the best that's in you. And with that, I'll say grand evening to you all.
Okay. And someone asked, what was it? Bob Becco, what was that song?
Oh, that was You Don't Know Me, Ray Charles.
Okay. The song he sang was
I didn't complete it.
You Don't Know Me.
Yes.
By Ray Charles. Again, yes. Thank you so much. And we're going to cut it off. We got 50 seconds. We love you and appreciate you. Appreciate all those who are moderating in the chat. Thank you so much, Brother Jaleel, Sister Sam Banjo, those of you who are always here, and he's showing you my book. The book is 15 notes plus $4 shipping. If it's domestic here in the U.S., if you're overseas out of the country, it's 15 plus 12 shipping and handling. Just email me. Chat, send me something, Cash App. But
Yes.
I need to get your address if you Cash App.
Location, yes.
Location, but if you PayPal, just put note in the note section and it's for the book.
And thank you all again for your supports.
We appreciate it.
And taking the time to share with us as we're taking the time to share with you.
Absolutely. We thank you and we appreciate you. Good night.
Grand evening.